done it in the past where we've taken someone who's a younger, talented player like a Carlos Martinez and put them right in the bullpen at the big leagues. And then eventually would we try to get them to start at some point. Trevor Rosenthal was another guy that started that went to the bullpen. So, we're always open-minded to that. And, as we look at how spring training unfolds, that'll be definitely something that's in consideration.
Whoa! Was that John Mozeliak?
Oh, is he back?
Is he back? Is he in charge of the Cardinals again? What happened? Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Yes, we are talking about Cardinals starting pitchers going to the bullpen once again. I don't know how realistic this is, but Derek Gould had a piece earlier today over in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Ollie Marmol was asked yesterday about, hey, Bryson Motts, he looks good. You guys could use a lefty coming out of your bullpen. Motts was one of the minor league pitchers of the year for the Cardinals last year. Is this a scenario in which he could be somebody that fits into the bullpen for the Cardinals on opening day? My guess would be no, T-Bone. My bet would be on he starts at AAA. This is a story on February the 24th because, frankly, there aren't a whole lot of stories early in Cardinals camp. And so I'm not saying you have to manufacture a story, but it is an intriguing situation to monitor in spring training if they decide, hey, Bryson Motts' arm is too good to ignore at this point in camp. To me, T-Bone, all of this is about what is best for Bryson Motts' development. If the Cardinals believe with their individualized plans that they're going to for each and every pitcher in the minor league system, the best thing truly for Bryson Motts is to get major league hitters to respond to his stuff so he gets instantaneous feedback every time that he throws a pitch, not from a AA or AAA hitter who's likely to swing and miss at some of the stuff that maybe wouldn't get that same response at the big league level, but instead to get, Aaron Judge and Alex Bregman and guys that are hitting these things 110 miles an hour off the bat, and they've got great batter's eyes where they're going to spit on that low and outside pitch. If that's the kind of response they believe is best for Bryson Motts' development, I could at least listen to the argument as to why this would make sense for him. But if the argument starts with, we need a lefty out of the pen, that is something that may have made sense 5 years ago for the Cardinals, even 2 years ago for the Cardinals. Today, that cannot be the explanation as to why Bryson Motts would potentially break camp with the big league club. It has to be about his development and what is best for him to become a starting pitcher for the Cardinals for 2027, hopefully, and beyond.
Yeah, I think if it starts, like you said there, with the conversation of, boy, we could really use another lefty, then they're falling into the old habits of the guy you heard coming back from commercial break, which was John Mozeliak. I don't think that would be the best path forward for him because you're not in a spot where you could, if you need a second lefty, it's not breaking your back as a club, right? When you're winning, when you are in a winning window, and if you don't have a second lefty and you're thinking, boy, we could really use one of these, I could see how you push yourself to add someone while you're chasing after wins. Cardinals aren't chasing after wins this year. It is all about development. So you have to pick what is the path for the long term, as Heim keeps referring to, right? He says it's not about the short-term games, it's about what we're planning for in the long term. And this is one of those pivotal long-term decisions. If you believe he can develop at the big league level and get enough innings to help see what how his stuff plays at the major league level, then sure, you can call him up here and put him in that role. But if you are just doing it because you need a lefty, I agree with you. That is the wrong way to do it. You just need to send him down to AAA if that's the case. Have him start, have him continue to build off of what was a great season at AA, see how AAA hitters respond to his stuff, and see if you can build him up to like 125-ish, 130 innings, and then he can be ready to go potentially for your 2027 rotation. That's the path I would prefer they take, is that he goes down to AAA and just continues to operate as a starter where he's guaranteed potentially 5 to 6, maybe 7 innings and outings compared to like 2 or 3 inning burst here at the major league level, because I want to see his arm continue to develop as a starter.
If they said on opening day, T-Bone, like, let's go down this path for a minute. Whether it's Bryson Motts or one of the other young arms that we're all excited about. Maybe it's Quinn Matthews. I don't know. Whoever. They decide, you know what? We believe it's in their best interest to come out of the bullpen and to use this season as a training ground. See how your pitches, see how opposing hitters respond to them. for 2026. And the plan would be either for midway through this year or next year, more likely, for them to transition into the rotation the way that we're watching with Kyle Leahy this year. Kyle Leahy was a bullpen arm last year. Matthew Liberatore 2 years ago was a bullpen arm for them. We've seen this in the past. Lance Lynn had half a season where he was coming out of the bullpen. Carlos Martinez was a guy that came out of the bullpen. Adam Wainwright came out of the bullpen. This used to be their go-to way to develop starting pitchers. Now it's a new regime in place, and I'm wondering, does that new regime actually give you more belief that they would be doing this for the right reasons and that they would be saying this and you would give them the benefit of the doubt? Or would you immediately go to, they're rushing a starter again?
I would still immediately go to they're potentially rushing a starter
Even
again.
though it's a different regime in place with different ways of developing these starters, and they've shown over the last couple of years with both Libby and now with Kyle Leahy that there's actually a plan in place that could get that guy from being in the bullpen to being a starting pitcher.
Yeah, I would still question it, even with the new regime, because I'm not sure it's what's best for the arm, right? I think, and looking back I remember looking specifically at Rob Serfolio with his time with the Guardians, and I know he's not the Pobo, but follow along with me. I remember when we first interviewed him here on the show, I went back and looked at like what they were doing at the lower levels with pitching, and their main focus was, hey, we want guys to develop in the minor leagues, and we will develop them all the way from basically low A through triple A. And he told us at the time, I asked him, hey, you're really pushing guys at the lower levels of the minor leagues. You know, we see guys that come into Major League Baseball, and they barely throw when they're down there at the low A levels. But he said, hey, look, the best thing for guys in the minors is to constantly be throwing, and I think that is still the case here when you get to triple A. When you get to triple A, you're not seeing Major League hitters, but it is another step in that development process, right? When you get to AAA, you're seeing fringe big leaguers at that point, 4A players, guys like Jose Fermines to see how your stuff plays, to where they can take advantage of your stuff if you're not developed properly. I think that is the best spot for him to go down and learn that stuff. I wouldn't give the benefit of the doubt to a new regime. I would stick with development is meant to be made in the minor leagues.
I'm the opposite. I would give them the benefit of the doubt. I think these guys have earned that based upon their prior stops. Chaim Bloom at every stop has been a pitching development factory. We saw with Rob Serfolio and the Cleveland Guardians, they had plans in place and they got the most out of their starting pitchers. Pierpont, the guy that is in charge of the pitching development in the Cardinals minor league system right now, he was with the Seattle Mariners. I would say they've done a pretty good job of developing their minor league pitchers into big leaguers. And if they determine, you know what, we actually have a lot of guys that are kind of stuck at that AAA level right now, which is true. They do. They have a lot of guys that are going to fit into that mix, especially as we get into like the second month of the regular season. We're already talking about at the big league level, the 3 to 5 starter mix, where you're at Palante, McGreevy, Kyle Leahy, Fitz, Dobbins, and then you add in guys that are expected to start the year at the AAA level as well, like some of the guys that we're just talking about. Tink Hintz, Bryson Motts, Quinn Matthews, Ishan Henderson, if and when he returns to full health, Ian Bedell maybe. I mean, not all these guys can start at the AAA level. Maybe they look at this and say, we don't want players to stall out. Drangelo Sainja at some point, probably sooner rather than later, will be a guy that gets to the AAA level. At some point, you're going to look at it and say, hey, man, we're either going to have these guys come out of the bullpen at the AAA level or the major league level. So maybe the best thing for them is to get this experience at the major league level. Come out of the bullpen, see how your stuff plays. Maybe it's Fitz, maybe it's Dobbins, maybe it's Quinn Matthews, maybe it's Tink Hintz. I don't know. I don't know who that pitcher is specifically. I think for Hintz, I'd like him to stretch out this season and get the innings. The other guys are more built up in that capacity. I would just give this baseball regime in St. Louis the benefit of the doubt. I know it's early. I know that may seem kind of crazy because it's their first year in charge here, but given all of their track records, I think they've earned that right, and I don't think it's fair for me to judge them on the ghosts of pitcher development crisis past here in St. Louis.
Yeah, I get it. That's fair. I'm trying to look back right now on the fly on like, okay, are some of these guys that went through these minor leagues, like you pointed out, like Pierpont came through Seattle, Cleveland with Serfolio. Did any of these guys kind of come up that are in their rotations that are now that would have been kind of taken by them and come out of the bullpen and then move into the rotation? And right now, again, with doing this on the fly, like Seattle, for example, with their guys, it was mostly, okay, they all came up and they were in the rotation.
Sure.
Now, that means they took their time in developing them. Like, I'm looking at Brian Wu, for example, 18 starts in 2023 at 23 years old. We'll see if he skipped the minor league or skipped AAA, or if they decided to have him develop down there.
While you're looking at that, just real quick to add on to that, my point is, though, I think their history has earned them the right to make these decisions. And so, yes, while it may have been for Brian Wu or Bryce Miller or Logan Gilbert, whoever it may be, they took this path. It may look a little different for Quinn Matthews. Quinn Matthews is already older today than what you just mentioned there with Brian Wu when he made his major league debut. So all of their paths they take are different to the major league level. That doesn't mean that it's right to do it this way or another way. Maybe it requires something a little bit different. Matthew Liberatore's path is going to be quite different than a guy like Liam Doyle. And it should be. They're two very different starting pitchers that need different things when it comes to their development. I just trust the current guys in place that they will have the best plan possible. And the minor league system is different today than it was 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, or than what the Seattle Mariners system was at the time that Brian Wu was coming up through their system as well. And I think the glut of pitchers that you're currently seeing at the AAA level is a big part of this conversation. There are only so many starts to go around. And when you have Hintz, Motts, Fitz, Dobbins, Matthews, Henderson, and others that are all expected to be a part of your AAA rotation, man, there's only so many starts. So who's going to become the odd man out at the AAA level? Are they just going to go back down to AA? Does that make sense for their development? Or would it make more sense for them to either be in the bullpen at the AAA level or be in the bullpen at the major league level? That might be the decision that they have to come to for some of these guys.
Yeah, and like looking through, I get it. I just think it's better for them to continue to stretch out as starters down at the AAA level. And I understand what you're saying. Someone's going to be the odd man out. I expect injuries are going to take place at some point to where it doesn't even become a conversation.
What do you do on opening day then?
Opening, like what I'm doing at AAA on opening day? Well, we'll see if Henderson's ready to go. If he's not, you're probably set down at the AAA level in that case with their arms. I don't, like, are you asking for the major league level or for at the AAA level for them?
Well, you're saying if they, like, the injuries will take care of this. They might not. It may be a situation where you have to plan for, if we are healthy, then we do this. And that's what I'm talking about here is, like, I think it's a bit unfair to just say outright, this would be a mistake, when there is context to each of these decisions, and it might not be a mistake for them this time around. It may be the right thing for these players individually for somebody to go into the bullpen and to develop that way. Richard Fitz is 26 years old. Hunter Dobbins is 26 years old. He'll be 27 this season. Bryson Motts is about to be 25 this year. Quinn Matthews is going to be 26 by the end of the season. These guys are no longer like really, really young players. Tink Hintz is 23. It feels like he's been in the system for a decade. He is by far the youngest of the pitchers that we're talking about at the AAA level. So these other guys, I don't think it's the worst thing for them to get their opportunity coming out of the bullpen at the major league level. That's my point that I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see based on the circumstance, but I prefer to have the development occur as a starter down in the minor leagues. And if we get to a point at the end of spring training we're still having this conversation, I'll still listen to it. But my plan right now would be that he starts the year AAA. Like you mentioned, Hintz is probably a AA again this year for his development. He didn't earn enough innings at the AA level to get any sense that he developed down there last season. So he's a guy that ends up being down there. It's a good problem to have because this is the kind of depth they've been lacking for, 5+ years at this point, because this is what I would prefer to have is you just have this pitching pipeline that you're looking at going, boy, someone's an odd man out that we have to have a conversation about going into the bullpen or potentially moving on from in the offseason as a trade candidate that we hope to improve our farm system elsewhere. But my biggest fear of if they do this in the bullpen with Motts is that it becomes more of a short burst role than it is more of a kind of stretched out 2-3 inning burst. And the reason that I fear that is I just want to continue to keep your starters as stretched out as possible. That way, like if Motts is ready to go for next year, you don't run into what they're probably going to run to at some point this year with Leahy, and they ran into it and I'm sure they would have loved to have kind of avoided this last year with Libby, but they just had no options.
Sure.
Where you run into an innings limit, right? Then it comes to you get to about like midway through the second half, and you're going, boy, we really don't want to start this guy because we're afraid of the strain we're going to put on his arm. I would rather, if you can, you have them develop in the minor leagues, they add those innings up, and then you get a guy like McGreevy, for example, who never was going to come to the big leagues with an innings limit on him. That is what I would call the preferred path if you can find a way to get there. Again, some of that may rely on injuries, which is the worst thing possible, but that's the preferred path for me.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll dive into some NFL quick hitters. We do want to hear from you. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is available for you, as always, at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. By the way, there's been some concern from people about Ivan Herrera and his lack of appearances in the Cardinals minor league, or the Cardinals spring training games, rather. Reached out to somebody with the Cardinals today, said, hey, is this something we should care about? And I was basically told, no, it's not a big deal whatsoever. Scale of 1 to 10, it's at a 0 right now. Now, that's easy to say today. If we get 2 weeks from now and we're talking about, early March, mid-March, and he still hasn't made appearances, he's not getting behind the plate, and now it starts to become a little bit more of a storyline, we'll talk about that. But for here and now, right, like where we're at today, it sure seems as though the Cardinals aren't concerned about that at all. So I will also hold that opinion of, all right, not a big deal yet. Let's give it a little bit more time before we overreact to his lack of appearances in spring training. Coming up next, there was a piece earlier today over on The Athletic about Justin Faulk and just how much value he could hold on the trade market. When I saw this, T-Bone, I had a very clear reaction. Well, you have to trade him if that's the kind of return that you're going to get. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Missed the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with the voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Curbside is presented by Bellman Automotive. For the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle, shop Bellman in Troy. Online at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman. Nominate yourself to be the Morning After Listener of the Month, and you could be selected and score a Form Energy prize pack. Sign up now at 101ESPN.com or TMASTL.com. The TMA Listener of the Month Club is presented by Form Energy. We do the work. This is exactly where you want to be, listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
All right, we've got the Blues practice lines today. The top line, Holloway with Schenn and Snuggerud. The second line, Neighbors with Booch and Kyrou. Third line, Suter with Thomas and Berggren. And then the fourth line is Torpo with Finley and Walker. Fabry, Sonny, and Joseph, all the extras today. Bennington, Parayko, Dvorsky, the guys that were off at the Olympics, other than Suter, all not back yet. The guys that played in the medal games, not yet back from the Olympics as expected. T-Bone, only one real takeaway from this for me. I do wonder if they're going to limit Thomas's ice time coming back from this injury. It would make a lot of sense if that is indeed the case. It's not as though this team is pushing for a playoff spot right now, so you could slow play it. Coming back from an extended break, coming off of the minor procedure that he apparently had on his leg. I was wondering kind of what the plan was with Thomas. Now seeing him centering that third line, I do wonder if that's going to be the course of action that they decide to take.
Yeah, and that would make sense because like we've seen over the last couple of days while the Blues are skating, he's been on the third line, and it's been with like Berggren and insert filler on the left side there with Suter. And I think we both just kind of thought, okay, maybe he's just kind of an extra and he's holding the place right now because surely Thomas doesn't center your third line. But now seeing that they've put Suter on there makes me think he's probably a player on Thursday. And I think you're right. I think they may just try and slow play this, which would be the smart thing to do coming off not serious injury, but coming off of an injury, wanting to make sure that he gets back and is slow played into this. To your point, you got nothing you're really playing for the final 25 games outside of developing guys. No need to rush him back and get him up to top line minutes right away to risk the re-aggravation of an injury. So I like the fact that if you're going to slow play him, it makes sense.
We did get this from the text line as well on the defensive pairings, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. The defensive pairings that skate today were Tucker and Faulk, Broberg with Mailloux, and Fowler with Kessel. Somebody said, do you guys think they're experimenting with Broberg and Mailloux for if and when they trade Justin Faulk? It's possible. That would make some sense. I do find it interesting that they have Tucker up with Justin Faulk instead of Fowler with Faulk potentially for that top pair. But it's hard to say specifically what their plans are. I will say this. When I looked at this piece over on The Athletic earlier today, breaking down the best matches that you could have across the NHL for the NHL trade deadline, it became very clear to me Justin Faulk shouldn't be here beyond the trade deadline. He's having a very good season for the Blues. But if they're able to get a first-round pick plus more in return for Justin Faulk to take on his services elsewhere, that's the kind of thing to me, T-Bone, that like very rarely do you say it's a no-brainer. You got to do this at the deadline. That's the kind of move that becomes that for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Looking at what they had on The Athletic today, I'm going, man, this might be your best asset at the deadline. That's like reasonable, like has to be out the door, like you said. Because Kyrou, yeah, probably is a better asset, but he's not one that you're looking at going, he has to be out the door. If the Blues said, you know, we want to run it back with Kyrou, Thomas as part of the core next year, I could get how you get to that point if you're the Blues. With Faulk, I look at it and go, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I mean, what you saw on The Athletic today, they were talking picks, prospects. I was going, man, this makes all the sense in the world that, yeah, you have to move this guy out there and add in the fact that he's maybe the best right-shot defenseman on the market right now. So, yeah, I think it's a no-brainer that he's out the door come the deadline.
Their haul that the Blues could potentially get, this was in return from the Detroit Red Wings for anybody that has not read it yet. Justin Faulk to Detroit. In return, the Blues get their 2026 first-round pick, their 2028 second-round pick, a left-handed defenseman prospect, William Wallander, and a goalie prospect in Landon Miller. I know nothing about those prospects, just to be full disclosure. A first-round pick and a second-round pick with 0 prospects in return, that alone would be like, yeah, please, let's go ahead and get this done. Where do we call it in? Before you can potentially say no, let's go ahead and get this thing across the table. I I just can't imagine saying no to an offer like that. I also get it from another team's perspective. I mean, think about the moves that the Blues have made in recent seasons for defensemen and what they had to give up for guys that aren't as productive or were not as good at the time as Justin Faulk. I think this is the kind of return you should be looking for. And I think sometimes we see these deals and the idea of a first-round pick has almost become taboo in the NHL, where teams are like, how much value does that really have? And I think a lot of that is because most teams aren't very good at drafting. The Blues don't fit into that criteria. The Blues are excellent at drafting. I mean, if we just go back starting in 2023 and going all the way back to 2010, let's go through these and we could talk about how many times they've missed, like truly whiffed in the first round. 2023, Dalibor Dvorsky, it's a hit. I don't know what he's going to be, but it's a hit in some capacity. Maybe it's a single, but they got that right. Otto Stenberg, hit in some capacity. Theo Lindstein, we'll see. He's a TBD at this point. Jimmy Snuggerud, hit. Zachary Bolduc, hit. Jake Neighbors, hit. Dominic Bach, I would say miss, but they immediately realized that they missed and flipped him for Justin Faulk, who now may be good enough to flip for another future first-round pick. So they're smart in how they are able to use that resource. Robert Thomas, hit. Klim Kostin, we could say miss there. That's fine. Tage Thompson, hit. Robbie Fabry, hit before the injuries. Jordan Schmaltz, miss. And then Jaden Schwartz and Vladimir Tarasenko both hit. That's in the 2010 draft. There's at most like 4 misses in the last 15 years by the St. Louis Blues when you're looking at what they have done in the first round. This is, to me, like the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL. For some teams, draft picks are just more valuable because they're better at it. That doesn't mean they were always going to hit. But the rate of hitting in the first round for the Blues is not the same as the rate of hitting in the first round for example, the Buffalo Sabres or the New York Rangers or the Detroit Red Wings, to use the example of who you're potentially trading with here. They're just better at this than most of the other teams across the NHL, especially in the Doug Armstrong era.
Yeah, and I'm with you. This is why, I don't have problems with settling on picks. It's why when we get asked about trade scenarios, are we searching for picks? Are we searching for prospects? Whatever I think is a better in return, right? If I look at the prospect system for a team and say, not a big fan of their top prospect, give me your first round pick. Because as you just read off, the Blues have had very good success when it comes to drafting in the first round. And by the way, that's through 2 different guys that have been running the draft, if I'm not mistaken, because way back to 2010 would have been Armstrong, that's
correct,
with Utah now. So and I'm with you. I'm okay with this. Now, it does mean you have to wait 2 or 3 years. Like you mentioned, Dvorsky. Mm-hmm. It took, 2.5-ish years, along with Stenberg, 2 years of development down in the minor leagues. Snuggerud was 3. It could have been 2 if he doesn't go that extra year in college last season. So you do have to wait a little longer, potentially, than what a prospect would get in return. And I think that's where it'll be interesting to see what the Blues' decision-making is, okay, do we think we can be better than expected it going into next year, which is what Alex kind of seems to believe, or do they look at this more in the long run of, hey, we already potentially have our pick, which could be in the top 3, which could get us an asset that will be ready immediately, and then can we add in some other pieces that kind of come in at a little bit of a later date on the timeline in 2 or 3 years as we develop them with first-round picks? So I'm okay with their draft history to be taking as many first-round picks as possible in these trades. I also don't mind, I know some people would say, why would you flip Sonny for a 4th-round pick? Well, you look at the Blues, darts on the dartboards, they've been very good at as well. Going past 2022, going back to the timeline that you just said, which was dating to 2010, here are the picks that they've made in the 3rd round or later. Colton Ellis was a guy that they were very high on. Joel Hofer is your starting goalkeeper right now. Tyler Tucker was a 7th-round pick who looks like he could be a good 3rd-pair defenseman, if not a 7th.
Getting an NHL caliber player of any capacity in the 7th round is a win.
Exactly. Alexei Toropchenko was the 4th round back in 2017. And the list just goes on of guys that they have been able to hit late in rounds. Jake Wallman, Ville Husso, Sammy Blais was a guy that became a good 4th liner for a little bit before injuries got him. They have success in later rounds as well. So, I want as many darts at the dartboard to throw. I'm not telling you you're drafting any kind of a stud late in the rounds, but can you get some supplementary roster pieces to where Tyler Tucker is on the cheap as a third pair defenseman in a couple of years with that pick, compared to having to go out and pay $4 to $5 million for a third pair defenseman. That's why, to me, if you are looking for picks, yes, I'm all in on taking him because it's just more darts to throw at the dartboard.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That's the Your Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. But next, NFL Quick Hitters here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, presented by Ted Cruz Frozen Custard.
Hey, it's BK. Later this afternoon, I'm going to be heading over to Victory Men's Health out in town and country to get my personal consultation with the licensed professionals over there at Victory Men's Health. They're helping me unlock my inner champion. They could do the same thing for you. For me, that meant getting my micronutrient levels checked, finding out where I'm at, and they can put together a personalized plan for me. When they have that in place, each and every month, they send to my front door a personalized package of what I need. Supplements, vitamins, all of that stuff ready to go for me. It's all put into individual packets so that way I wake up, pull out the latest one, and I'm just ready to go to get my day started. That's what it means for me. For you, it may mean something very different. Maybe it's erectile dysfunction, weight loss goals, low testosterone, vitamin infusions, a supplement shop, red light therapy, cardiovascular testing, and so much more. They've got it all available for you today. Check them out. Book your first appointment online at victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Mizzou making late season surge. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Mark Mitchell's Tigers enter tonight's showdown against Tennessee, having won 4 of their last 6 tilts. Number 25 caught fire for 26 points in a 94-86 loss to Arkansas Saturday afternoon. Post Volunteers, MU's remaining 3-game stretch will include bouts versus Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and those same Razorbacks again. Elsewhere this evening, 23rd-ranked SLU visits Dayton. Illinois finds itself idle until February 27th. MLB spring training, the Cardinals battle Washington shortly, while Atlanta extending 36-year-old ace Chris Sale. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Let's dive into some NFL quick hitters as the NFL Combine officially begins today. T-Bone, how much do you care about the Combine?
Oh, not at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Not something that appeals to you?
No, because I don't care about how fast a guy ran a 40, his bench press, his leaping ability. Let's just get to the draft, and then I'll react when I see the pick. Because I care more about what the guy did at the collegiate level than I care about how quickly he ran a 40-yard dash.
Live it one time, buddy. It's really something to behold. Seriously. BK, you did it years ago, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Had the experience? Yeah, full experience. A lot of fun.
Being there sucks, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
It's
Bradford
awful.
was about to tell you this great idea why he enjoyed it.
You don't actually get to see most of it. When you're there for the interviews. And so, you have TVs on in the interview room, but most of what you get is the actual interviews themselves. I like watching the on-field product. The actual NFL Combine, I find to be incredibly entertaining. I like watching guys run and jump and see these unbelievable feats that these specimens are able to do on the field. I also care about the athletic testing. I think it's super important, especially for specific positions. In a running back, not all that important. Corner, you better be able to run. Defensive end, it really matters what your 10-yard split is. So there's certain stuff that's not all that important, but for a lot of these positions, there's been enough research at this point that it's not a direct one-to-one correlation, but it's pretty darn close to some of these positions. If you're not this level of athlete, the odds of you succeeding at the NFL level are low. There are outliers, but it's low. So I like watching this stuff to see how these guys are able to do. That being said, there's other business that gets done this time of the year, especially when it comes to meetings, competition committees, all this different stuff. And they are looking at a few different things, T-Bone. First of all, they've decided tush push, it's fine. The Eagles weren't good at it this year, so now we've all decided apparently, actually, we don't really care about that play. So the NFL is going to continue to allow that. They are apparently not looking at going to the 4th and 15 play instead of the onside kick. I think that's a miss personally, but whatever. They are also, according to Troy Vincent, who's the executive vice president of football operations, considering a replay review assist for non-football acts. What they mean by that is a play happens, after the play is dead, there's a guy that punches another dude in the helmet, and it's missed by the referees, and they see it up in the booth. Previously, they can't penalize that. This past year, there was a player that should have been penalized, wasn't. Play happens, and then it continues to move on, and then he's suspended the next week. There was never any kind of penalty for the play, but he's suspended for the following week. They're looking at making that a reviewable play that they can now penalize. I've got my qualms with this. T-Bone, how do you feel about it?
I'm okay with it. I'm not sure if it's necessarily a need that you need to bring this along. If you miss I know it's going to sound weird, if you miss a punch away from an official, I don't know that we need to have the booth see it and then get the guy out of the game. I think it's just one of those that was missed. I don't care either way about that one. That one I'm okay if you implement it. If you didn't, it wouldn't bother me at all.
I don't like it because I think it's going to open up a lot of speculation and a lot of conspiracy theories on the NFL once again doing the thing where they break in late. There was no penalty flag on the field, and now they're going to buzz in to help a team X, Y, or Z help this week. I think we've already seen enough of this to know that's going to be the reaction from a decent segment of fans, especially now that sports betting has been legalized in most states across America. I just don't think it's necessary. This happens so rarely. They could pick out a couple of instances over the course of the year where it would have made any impact whatsoever. If you're not going to actually go back and penalize significant fouls that occurred that were missed, I don't see any reason to do it for this reason. So I would just avoid it. Avoid the potential missteps here. I don't think there's any need to do this.
And even the language, honestly, that Troy Vincent used yesterday in addressing this subject and noting 2 different incidents, yes, but it sounded very vague. It didn't sound as if there was a lot of concrete evidence to really point toward that supported moving forward.
The UFL/XFL, they're making some rule changes. I don't really know how many of them matter. They did ban the tush push. Okay, fine. They've decided that they're going to have 1 foot inbound for completed catches. Cool. I'm good with that. Same as the college rule. And then the other thing that took place here is they're doing something with the punt, and field goals is probably the biggest thing. Field goals of, I think it's like 50-plus yards will be worth 4 points now.
Yeah. 60-plus.
60-plus
60
yards
plus.
are worth 4 points. How do you feel about that one, T-Bone?
I'm not a fan because I don't want to incentivize kicking field goals, even though it's from 60-plus yards, which is a hard field goal to make.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about it like just past the 50-yard line.
Yeah, I don't want to incentivize a team to kick a field goal for that because it's worth more points. I want you to either continue with the risk of kicking the field goal, which would still be the case on the 4-point play. But I think Alex has brought this up, we've seen more teams value possession of the football now, that when they get to about this spot that we're talking about, do we go for a 60-yard field goal or do we try going for like 4th and 3? They opt for the 4th and 3, go for it. Or you try and pin the opponent back. I don't think we need like a 4-point field goal in football. I just think it's too much, and especially now that we've really got these balls that can really fly through the air. And I don't know if the UFL is adopting the kicking balls like the NFL did. I wouldn't doubt that they do. 60-yard field goals and they're still hard, don't get me wrong. They're not as hard as they used to be. I mean, we've seen that Brandon Aubrey makes this kind of a special occasion on the Cowboys where he puts up points from distance. I don't think it's necessary. I don't like this rule change.
I actually dig it from the perspective of the UFL. Okay, it's almost as if we have 50-plus field goals, 60-plus. They're garden variety stuff now in the NFL. But you spoke actually of an Aubrey, somebody who is a UFL alumnus, if you will. And this league, I still think, honestly, as strange as it sounds, needs to figure out a way to put front and center certain guys who are marketable in some ways. And honestly, some of these larger leagues, you can lean into that quite literally. There's nothing wrong with, in this league, in my estimation, if you want to bump it up to 4 points, if you want guys going out there trying to bomb it, get people excited, I am serious. From 60-plus, there's no concern in my eyes. No.
Agreed on the XFL side of things. It's actually been a pretty good pipeline to the NFL when it comes to kickers.
True.
That's probably been the position that's translated the best, which isn't a huge surprise. It's the position that's most similar to the NFL. It's not like an offensive tackle who's going up one-on-one against defensive ends and the competition level just increases. Kicking the ball is pretty much the same. Pressure's different, but otherwise the actual mechanics of kicking the football is the same in the UFL as it is in the NFL. What do you think number of kicks made 60-plus yards in the NFL last season? How many kicks do you think were made that were 60-plus yards last year?
16.
I'll take the over. 20.
12.
Oh.
12 for 22 in the NFL last year when it came to 60-plus yard field goals.
20
I
attempts.
thought I had you because I've got this article open. This was over the last 2 years. That's why I said 16.
I would be fine with this in the NFL, too. Talking about 12 kicks. You're seeing less than one a week where this impacts a game, and it impacts the game to the tune of exactly 1 extra point. I'd be fine with this. I've got no issues with it whatsoever. I'm cool with it being a 4-point field goal at this point.
I just find it ridiculous. I don't want to see it at the NFL level. UFL, you know what? UFL, you can do you, right? You want to play with 13 guys on the field? I'm cool with it. You want to go 7-on-7? I'm cool with it. You know why? Because I'm not watching. I don't care. The NFL, I don't want to see a 4-point field goal get kicked.
It screams gimmick to you, doesn't it?
Does
Yeah.
it, though?
Yeah. To you, yeah. I mean, I can understand it.
But why?
That
Was it a
lens.
3-point play as a field goal for how long since football was
Sure,
invented?
but once upon a time, we didn't have the ability to, go for a 3-point field goal in the NBA. That was seen as a gimmick. And then they implemented the 3-point line, and it became a really important piece of the NBA game. An extra point for this, we didn't used to kick 60-yard field goals. For how many years, the 60-yard field goal was the NFL record.
The game's evolving, Tanner.
Yeah,
it's
but
evolving.
I don't want what I don't want to see is like field goal fest where we're kicking field goals from 60-plus yards. And now there's
I don't
more
think you're
incentive to
going
kick it. I think there's more incentive if you're going for a 4-point play, and especially if you have a guy like Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys.
They're already doing it. So
Yeah.
why does it change
I don't
anything
want
for
to
them?
incentivize it anymore. It's only 3 points. You can go for 3 points if you want. I don't want you getting that extra point. It changes the equation a little bit.
But
for
given the rate at which teams are constantly going for it on 4th down, not even on 4th and short, do you really think there will be that much of an uptick in attempts, especially down the stretch when the season is getting close to the tail end? I really don't. I don't think it's drastically different
Somebody
either
on the
way.
text line said, what happens when they run backwards so they can try a longer field goal? Sounds silly. I think the odds of that happening are slim to none. I think at the end of a half, you may see something like that where, like, you're either going to get a 55-yard field goal or a 60-yard field goal, and there's like 5 seconds left in the half. Maybe you then decide, okay, it makes sense for us to revert back a little bit to get that extra point potentially. Then there would be some game theory that takes place. But beyond that, there would be very few scenarios in which this would actually be a big deal. So I'd be interested in it. Again, last year there were like 12 of these. It's not something that's going to impact every game that you're watching on a Sunday. Odds are it will impact 0 games that you watch on Sundays, maybe one a week. You'll be watching Red Zone from 12 p.m. until 6 p.m. And over the course of those 6 hours of football, you may see one game in which this kind of a field goal is attempted.
It'll be okay,
much
buddy.
less
For the guy
made.
that hates
So I'm cool
having
with it.
kickers in fantasy leagues, I'm surprised he's for a 4-point field goal.
I don't see the downside, really.
You put kickers in our fantasy league next year.
I don't want to. I don't think
I don't want a 4-point field goal.
I don't think that it's good for fantasy football for a kicker to
think
be
this is good
worth
for
as
football.
much or more than a running back, for example. I do think, though, in the NFL, kickers really do impact games in a serious way, and kickers are being better, so I think that this will be fine. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, what is the timeline for the Cardinals rotation competition? We'll get into that coming up here in just a little bit. Questions and answers next year on 101 ESPN.
The Blues play on 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Thursday night, Blues and Kraken. Pre-game at 6. Puck drop at 7.
He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. the picture. The real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions. We may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. To the topic we were just having of 4-point field goals, how much impact they would have on games. We did get somebody on the text line that made a, I think, interesting point from the 314. Guys, there is a scenario in which 4-point plays could reduce the need for the Hail Mary whenever a team has a 4-point lead. True. There's no denying that. I was curious, how often do we see that scenario actually play out, though? Down by 4, exactly 4, with less than 2 minutes to go in the game. So I looked this up. Pro Football Reference has an ability to do this. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times last year in which that exact scenario played out. So a total of 12 times over the course of a 17-game regular season, less than 1 time a week, we see a scenario in which the team that's down by 4 ends up getting the ball back with less than 2 minutes to go. So
Don't take away 12 Hail Marys for us, potentially. I don't know how many of those ended up needing a Hail Mary, but no need to eliminate them.
Yeah.
No need for the 4-point field goal.
It does not happen very often. All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from Moistus Alou. Guys, who will be the odd man out of the rotation, and why is it Andre Palante?
Whoa, it may not be Palante.
Big start tonight. Excited.
Sure. My guess right now is the odd man out would probably be Dobbins, is my opinion, just because he's a little bit behind everybody else. That would be my guess as who is the odd man out right now. Now, if he can get back and on the mound and gets in spring training games and looks just awesome, then I would bet on Palante being the odd man out, but he would probably just go into the bullpen. He's not going down to the minors to continue to be stretched out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be my betting favorites right now. I don't know really what to make of Fitz or Dobbins as of today. Those are the guys that I haven't seen them with my own eyes in a Cardinals uniform, so it's hard to say one way or the other. Could they both end up making this roster over Andre Palante as a starter? Absolutely. I just don't know yet. We're too early in spring, but as of today, I would just say you go with the incumbents, and then one of those other two ends up being the 6th man to start out the season. The other one goes down to AAA.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Guys, how do you think the Blues will navigate their roster moves by the time that they have to for Thursday's game? It's a good question. T-Bone, we were talking about this off air earlier today. I don't know what's going on right now with Otto Stenberg. I don't think he's appeared in his last couple of games down at the AHL level. He has not joined the NHL club as far as we can tell. So he might be one of those guys that's stuck in limbo. I don't know if there's an injury situation there. Keep an eye on that. That might make this a little bit easier when it comes to just the overall roster decisions that have to be made. But beyond that, I wouldn't be surprised to see like Robbie Fabry placed through waivers. I could see something like that. Maybe a Matthew Joseph as well. And then you could put, depending on what their plan is with him, and Oscar Sundqvist on IR if they need to.
Yeah, I think that'll be the path that they go for right now. It's the path of least resistance, is you just put probably Joseph or Fabry through waivers. And with Sonny, you can put him on IR, and I believe it's retroactive to his last game that he played in. So you can put him on IR, and if he's ready to go by the weekend, you could reactivate him by the weekend. So I think that's the path that they're going to go. I'll be curious to see what their plan is with Stenberg if he is healthy. You brought this up. It's possible he could be here in St. Louis, and they just haven't made the paper transaction.
And that's pure speculation, just to be clear.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
If that were the case, that's just because they can't make the move for him to practice yet. I wonder if they wait till the post deadline, or at least post maybe one trade that they pull off before maybe they bring him back up here.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 314. Guys, how much fun do you think Chip Carey's going to have this season with the name Richard Fitz? I think he'll probably say that more often than not. He'll have a good time with it.
What's his big thing he does like every broadcast? Is it pointing out
69?
69?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if he's having fun with that, you can guarantee he's going to have some fun with Richard Fitz.
I think he's going to have a good time with that.
It's almost the projected victory total, so you kind of have to reinforce that, right?
Yeah.
Beginning of the season, maybe not.
From the 618 guys,
possible.
maybe Stenberg is part of a pending trade. That would surprise me.
That would shock me. Yeah, that's quite the tinfoil theory text line.
Blue 42 Set Pizza Hut says, do you guys think the Cardinals or the Blues are going to go on a playoff run sooner? I know that I've been saying this for a while now, and I got shouted down previously. I've always felt that the Cardinals are in a very similar, if not further along spot than the Blues. I've maintained that position over the last few seasons, so I'll continue to say the Cardinals.
I agree that the Cardinals are now a little further along than the Blues. I think the Cardinals are the one that would be closer, but I still think you're 3 years away from that potentially happening. And if the Blues surprise me and are more aggressive and are planning to be better quicker than expected, maybe they're that one that does it. But right now, my bet would be the Cardinals in like 3 years.
All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We'll talk to Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider for The Athletic, coming up in about 15 minutes. We'll ask him if he's heard anything on Otto Stenberg, what his status is right now, and when we could potentially see him back up the NHL level. JR in 15 minutes. But next, what's that timeline for the Cardinals rotation competition? Is it just going to take place during the spring, or are there going to be some decisions that take place even over the first month or two during the regular season? We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN.
Jamie Rivers here, and it is time for a new jersey giveaway. This month, we've got your shot to score an autographed Blues jersey signed by the captain, Brayden Schenn. It's the old Blues jersey, which is now the alternate jersey, and it is a beauty. Jamie's jersey giveaway is presented by St. Luke's, ranked number 3 in the nation for cardiovascular care by Modern Healthcare. Visit stlukes-stl.com.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. So, T-Bone, you asked me something earlier today that I found to be interesting. What is the Cardinals' timeline for the rotation competition? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so, when we see with these guys at spring training, we talked about, like, what are position battles that are going to happen. And our typical answer is the shoulder shrug emoji, like, who's probably on the bench. And though there is a quote-unquote competition in the rotation right now, I think it truly is down to about 7 guys for 6 spots, because I expect them to open with a 6-man rotation. And as we just talked about, my bet today would be that Dobbins is the one that's kind of on the outside looking in. But, over the first 3 games, and make what it is, super early in spring training, some of the guys that are going to be close to the big league level this year down in the AAA level have looked impressive. Motts was very good yesterday in his 2 innings of work, so much so that there was we talked about it in the opening segment, could he be a guy that comes out of the bullpen this year? Quinn Matthews' velo ticked up to where he was throwing about 95 in his first appearance of spring training over the weekend. And I couldn't help but think to myself, you know what? I don't know that these guys have a chance to make the opening day roster. Maybe they do if you decide to go the bullpen route for one of them. But they probably start the year at AAA would be my guess as of today, both Motts and Matthews. But I think this is the spot on the roster that these guys that do make the opening day rotation will have a shorter leash than maybe we are expecting for them to hold on to that spot. I think they get about a month to 4 to 6 weeks to kind of pitch at the big league level. They continue their kind of build up and ramp up out of spring training, which the Cardinals did last year, as we saw with their pitchers, and they'll really do that with younger arms like they've got this year. But if you got a guy like Motts or a Quinn Matthews that come out of the gates and their stuff looks great at AAA, and you've meanwhile got someone that's maybe up here at the big league level, and we'll use Fitz as an example just for this purpose, sure. That is, you look at him and go, kind of struggling, not striking out the world, walking some guys, ERA sitting at 5 through about 4 or 5 starts. I could see where the Cardinals don't say, let's give him a little bit while. I think it could become, hey, we've got depth down in the minor leagues. Let's see what these other guys look like. Let's see what Motts' stuff would look like at the major league level as a true starter, where he comes in and he starts innings like 1 up to like 5 or 6, depending on how he looks. Same with a Quinn Matthews. I don't think this is going to be all right, here are 6 guys that are in the rotation coming out of spring training. We'll cut it down to 5 at some point, and they get to go up until the All-Star break. I think we could get about 6 weeks in and they go, you know what? Motts or Quinn Matthews has looked very good. Let's see if they are ready for that next step, and let's put them in and give them a couple of starts over someone like a Fitz or a Palante or a Dobbins if he makes the roster.
I've got a few different ways to look at the rotation. I think it's kind of stratified in the way that you can go about this. Now, it's worth noting, the only guys in the rotation currently that have options are Libby, Palante, McGreevy. Dustin May and Kyle Leahy cannot be sent down to the minor leagues. Those are guys that have to be on the major league roster all year long, or they're sent through waivers. So that's unlikely to happen. But those 2 guys locked for the major league roster, even if they're not in your rotation in some capacity. I think there are 3 locks for the opening day rotation. Like, no doubt about it. I'd be shocked if they're not in it. It's Libby, May, McGreevy. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
I would say one player that I think is likely to be in the opening day rotation is Kyle Leahy. Do you agree with that?
I agree.
I think that as long as he just shows what we have seen and what they're expecting, he doesn't have to be perfect. He's probably going to be in your opening day rotation. That's 4 spots. I think there are 2 more openings, as you mentioned, because I think they're going to go to a 6-man rotation to start things out on opening day. There are 3 players competing, in my opinion, for those 2 spots. It's Palante, Fitz, and Dobbins. Those are the 3 players for 2 spots on opening day. Where this really gets interesting is starting in May, because that's when, about 6 weeks into the regular season, they will typically transition to a 5-man rotation. That is when only one of those 3 pitchers at that point will still be a part of your rotation. So the other 2, Palante, Fitz, Dobbins, would no longer be a part of the rotation. Somebody's either going to the bullpen or going back down to AAA. You also still have Motts and Matthews, then eventually Doyle and Henderson. That's a lot of guys for basically 1 spot in your rotation. So Kyle Leahy, you've got like 2 months to prove whether or not you are a legitimate starter at the major league level. The same thing is true for Dobbins and Fitz and Palante. Those guys, you basically have a month to show your stuff to compete for that final spot in the rotation. And then beyond that, to keep your spot, you've got like a month for that before they start cycling through some of their options. This is why they made the trade. Somebody earlier today asked the question of, all right, guys, so I don't understand. They've got all this depth, and it might not even be opening day or early this season when we see Dobbins and or Fitz. So why do they trade for them? Because they needed depth. Last year, they were terrified, starting on opening day and dating all the way till the end of the regular season. If we lose one starter, we have nobody. It was Michael McGreevy, and that's it. And by the time that they decided to make the move with Eric Fetty, it was just, these are our five.
Yeah.
And if anybody gets hurt, we're transitioning a reliever to become a starter.
I think they
again.
would have done the Leahy experiment sooner.
Exactly. So they wanted to avoid having that in 2026, and they have avoided having that situation for 2026. And then beyond this, we talked about it earlier today. They've got a bunch of guys that are fallback options for 27, 28, etc. So I think they're in a pretty good spot when it comes to their depth. They're still lacking the top of the line starting arms. But I agree with you. I do think there is a competition that will not just exist in spring training, will not just exist for that 6-man down to a 5. There's going to be competition all year long as a part of this rotation. And I think it's going to be an under-the-radar storyline of how we're evaluating individual starts and how much that will play into, does this guy stay up? Does he go to the bullpen, or does he end up going down to AAA? What's best for his development long term?
Yeah, and I think it's the only spot really on the roster that you can look at and say that it's, one, a true competition in spring, but then will really extend itself in season. Like, some would argue the bullpen. I think that is just going to be more of the, hey, we need a body here because, the bullpen got fried in a game, so we call someone up from the 40-man and we use the Memphis shuttle.
Sure. I
don't know how much that's truly a competition. More so it is, hey, we just need fresh arms out there. But here in the rotation, like, this could be something that can, I wouldn't call it a rotating door, but some guys will actually lose their spots potentially as the season goes along. And it's not even just a competition in my mind of both for just 2026, it does play into future years as well as to, okay, what do we decide to do with a Bryson Motts? Does he replace what our vision was for, Kyle Leahy going into 2027/2028 because Leahy wasn't a starter? Same for like a Dobbins and Fitz. It's possible those guys end up pitching their way into what the Cardinals view as their plan over the next 2 or 3 years. It's also possible Matthews and Motts and Doyle end up pitching those guys out of the Cardinals' plans going into the next 2 seasons, and they become more of those depth pieces. So I like what they have done. This is why I've said at times in the offseason that I like what the depth is for the rotation. I agree with you. It's not so much there's some upside in this, but it's more of they just finally have bodies that they can continue to rely upon. And if someone doesn't pitch well, they lose their job. They can potentially send them down and bring someone else up to take it.
And all of this is why I think Matthew Liberatore would be the guy that I would look at and say, he's got a lot of pressure on himself, man. Because he's not as cheap or as young as a lot of these other guys are that are coming up. He's not a guy that you still view as like a ton of untapped potential. There's still a little something there. And like early last year, we saw some of the upside with Matthew Liberatore. If we see the same issues arise in 2026, though, that we saw last year, where he can't maintain that velo, you get into the 5th and 6th inning and it starts to wane, and it's like, okay, well, maybe he's just a bullpen arm. There are enough options now to where he could be what we talked about in the Open today about Bryson Motts, where they just flip spots. Maybe Bryson Motts is awesome at AAA for the first 2 months of the season, and Libby has a good first month, but then you start to see the same issues pop up again in May. If that happens, they may come to a decision in, early June where they say, you know what, it's not working, Libby. Let either trade him and see if somebody else wants to try to take on the project, or convert him over to being a full-time reliever, allow him to be that lefty arm that they're apparently looking for, where they want to, and then you go with a Bryson Motts or a Quinn Matthews, somebody like that becomes a full-time member of the rotation. There are just a lot of options, a lot of different directions that this can head. I'm not sure there's any player currently on the Cardinals pitching staff that has more pressure on them to perform early in 2026 than a guy like Matthew Liberatore, because many of these other players will have other opportunities. Like Richard Fitz, this is not his last chance to become a part of the Cardinal starting rotation. Same thing for a guy like a Michael McGreevy. He's going to be a part of this thing long term. He's cheap, cost controlled. He's somebody they trust. I don't know if those same things are there for somebody like a Matthew Liberatore. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK in 15 minutes. This one move could completely open up college football's calendar and allow for them to go to the system that we're all probably wanting them to go to anyways. We'll get into that coming up here in about 15 minutes. But next, Jeremy Rutherford, Blues Insider here on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 2009, a low-scoring affair between the Blues and Coyotes. Shane Doan started the scoring in the first period for Phoenix, but then back-to-back goals in less than 3 minutes by David Perron and a short-handed goal by Jay McClement. And in between the pipes for St. Louis, Chris Mason picking up 24 of 25 saves.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. It's time for the Rutherford Report with our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford, on 101 ESPN.
JR is brought to you by Evergreen Wealth Strategies, helping everyday people every day. Visit evergreen-ws.com.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, the Blues Insider for 101 ESPN and The Athletic. He's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on the show. JR, what's going on, man?
Gentlemen, and Tanner too. Good to be with you guys.
Good to be with you as well. JR, how you doing now that we are now only a couple of days away from the Blues getting back in action?
Yeah, how about that? It was a long break and a good break. Lots of good hockey to watch, and it was fun to watch the Blues out on the Olympic ice. I think that all of them did very well, and of course the Americans coming out with the victory. And even though there wasn't a Blues player on that team, a number of St. Louisans. So the hockey was fun to watch, but now it's time to get back to this Blues season. And we all certainly know the big picture, but sometimes when the big picture isn't great, like it is not right now for them in the standings, it does make for a lot of stories and headlines, and I'm sure that's what we're in for here as we get closer to the trade deadline on March 6th.
And I do want to get to all of that with you, but JR, you've been covering hockey for, 2 decades now here in St. Louis?
Yep.
How much does the U.S. winning gold mean for the growth of the sport in America, in your opinion? You're somebody that's been around this sport. You've seen the evolution. You've seen the development, especially here in this city. How much do you think this can mean for America when it comes to hockey's growth?
Just absolute tons. It means everything. And the reason I say that, BK, is because when you look at the numbers that have been growing into the 2000s and into 2010, and I think my colleague at The Athletic, Craig Custance, back in 2011, there was a tweet that said USA Hockey has eclipsed 100,000 in membership. And he said, look out, Olympics 2026. And look what those numbers did. The growth of the sport in America led to some better players, led to the players that we saw on the ice. And look, I can only go by the watch parties that I saw for the gold medal game, the videos that I saw on the watch party that I was at, but they were packed with 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old hockey players who could not be more excited to get back out on the ice and just keep their dream alive. So I think that's what it does, not just for the fans who casually pay attention, but for the players themselves.
JR, now going to the Blues, they were back on the ice again earlier today, and Thomas was centering the third line with Suter, who's back from the Olympics, and with Berggren on his right side. Is this the Blues potentially maybe slow playing Robert Thomas coming back from injury, putting him on that third line center, or is he going to just, when we get to game day, whenever he's ready, leapfrog back up to that top line, you think?
Yeah, it could be. It's a good question. I guess we'll find out. We get closer to Thursday. He's been down in that bottom six, Thomas, the past couple of days, just as he gets back, from that injury. He had the minor leg procedure, and I think he's, today at practice. I was not at practice. I was at Enterprise Center for some interviews, but Luke Korak tweeted that he looked pretty good skating out there, and he'd be surprised if he wasn't a player on Thursday. So, I could see it going both ways. We've seen it where they kind of slow play it a little bit, get him in that third line, get him 12, 13, 14 minutes that first game back. Or, sometimes at the last minute, we see that they're going to, in fact, move him back to the top line, and he's going to center there. So don't have any confirmation on that, but we'll see at the morning skate on Thursday.
JR, have you heard anything about Stenberg?
Yeah, Stenberg missed a couple games during the break. I believe he had a knee injury. I guess we'll call it lower body. I don't know or think that it's serious. He obviously has not been recalled. I don't know with the numbers that the Blues have at forward. Keep in mind, if everybody's healthy, the Blues have 16 forwards, 17 with Stenberg, and you can only keep 14. And so there is a chance that with all this massaging, wheeling, dealing, trading that we're expecting to see in the next 12 days, that they don't recall Stenberg, even if he was 100% healthy. So, still waiting to see that story play out. But between him being dinged up and also with the numbers they have, we might not see Stenberg until after the break.
JR,
trade deadline, sorry.
With those numbers that you're talking about and these guys that they've got, I mean, they ran 5 lines today at the forward group with all the guys that they have.
And that's without Dvorsky.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible Army kind of jumps the gun on the trade deadline then and maybe tries to move someone like a Suter, or if it were a Kyrou, if they could get that deal done quick enough, or Schenn, quicker than expected instead of waiting till the deadline because of this roster crunch?
Yeah, he could. I guess it depends on, what the options are in terms of who's absolutely 100% ready Thursday, who could, be on IR, who they think could clear waivers if they tried to put him through and send them to Springfield. I don't think he's going to force a deal just because they have so many bodies, but I do think it could play a role in that decision-making process.
We're talking to Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN. You can find all of his great work over at The Athletic. You can read him there, and you'll hear him regularly here on 101 ESPN as well. JR, for you, other than the trade stuff, which we'll certainly spend a lot of time on over the next few weeks, other than the trade stuff, what are the biggest storylines that you're monitoring as the Blues get back onto the ice?
Yeah, other than the trade stuff, I think a couple things to watch. Pavel Buchnevich at center, I know we talked about that a couple weeks ago. But Jim Montgomery, when he got to St. Louis and took over, he said that Buchnevich is a winger, but they've moved him to center recently. And Jim Montgomery said the other day that he's their best player down low and looks really good there. So with all the bodies back, do they keep him there? Do they move him to the wing? And I'm not just basing it on how they've been skating in practice, but how do they do it when they actually start playing some more games here? I think another thing to watch is the goaltending. That kind of ties into the trade talk. Is Jordan Binnington going to be a Blue after the trade deadline? Is he going to be a Blue this summer? Is Joel Hofer taking over the reins? I felt that Jordan Binnington played pretty well at the Olympics. People were wondering if he looks lights out, could that enhance his trade value? I've continued to say that, teams know who he is. If they want him, they'll make a run at him. But, I didn't think the Olympics would make a huge impact on that. So we'll see what happens down the stretch with the goaltending. But, Buchnevich at center, Dvorsky coming back, how does he use that Olympic confidence to finish off the season with the Blues? Things like that, the goaltending, those are the things that I think are going to stick out the most to me down the stretch.
JR, one thing, I know you say you weren't at practice today, but they did have Broberg with Mailloux. Do you think that's a pairing we could see in the second half of the season, especially if they move on from a Justin Faulk?
Yeah, I think they're going to be mixing and matching a little bit. I expect Mailloux to be in the lineup, down the stretch. They've got to continue to give him games, especially where he's at. And I know throughout the season, they've had a Cam Fowler with them. Would it help to have a Broberg with them? I realize that Broberg's back today and skating, and so, they're closer to getting all their pairs together. So maybe you'll see something that we're going to see in the game Thursday. I just think there's been so much mixing and matching, during these practices when they've been short bodies. There could be other reasons why we're seeing those pairs, and I just don't want to jump to conclusions that that's what we're going to see in the game on Thursday.
Last thing that I wanted to ask you about, JR, we talked about Booch and his spot at center potentially. Today, Schenn was centering that Holloway Snuggerud line, but I would imagine Dvorsky will fit into the center mix in some capacity whenever he does return. After seeing some of your colleagues and what they've been saying about, whether it's Justin Faulk's value on the trade market or Brayden Schenn in other ways, his value on the trade market, how do you view Schenn as a trade candidate this year?
I view him as a legitimate trade candidate. I view him as a player who now, when he's got 3 or 4 years left on that term, it's hard to move a guy when a team acquiring him is looking at acquiring a guy who's going to be in his mid-30s. When that deal's up and, you're projecting 3-4 years out, what's he going to have left at that point? Now you see the player, and granted that production is likely not what you would hope, but I think that what he brings from the experience standpoint, what he brings from, the playoff standpoint, look, no contender, no Stanley Cup top contending team is looking to bring in, a top line center, a top 6 forward, and think that Brayden Schenn is going to be that guy, but they can bring him in to be a third line center, to be a third line left winger, to move up the lineup in a pinch. And, whether it's a first round pick or something close, maybe it's a first round level asset that you're getting in return. I think that he's a player who could help a contender. And if he's willing to move, he does have the 15-team no trade protection. If he's willing to move, I think that's something that could work out and could benefit the Blues. Look, you're not getting a top prospect back, but I think you can get a high pick like we've seen in the past going into the deadline.
Jeremy Rutherford does a bunch of great work over at The Athletic. He is back on the grind as the Blues are back in action on Thursday night. We will see them on Saturday as well. You'll hear all of this action in the second half of the season right here on 101 ESPN. JR, appreciate the time as always, man. All the best. We'll talk with you again next week.
Yep, thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
You got it. That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. On the Schenn conversation, T-Bone, I understand the hesitance to make that move. There's a lot of fans that view it as this guy's your captain. If you trade him, who takes over as the leader in the room? And I get all of that. I heard the Fast Lane talking about this yesterday where they would be kind of hesitant to make the move with Brayden Schenn. I would just say this. I don't know how much worse it can really get. I'll never say that it can't get worse, but man, this team has not been very good for most of the last 4 years now. That is not a criticism of Brayden Schenn. I think Brayden Schenn is a very good leader. But I would say, if he's a very good leader and they haven't been good, then they need more than just that. They need more than just a good leader inside of the room. And I do think they have other good leaders. I think Jake Neighbors, I understand he's young, he's inexperienced, he hasn't been at the NHL level for the same time as Brayden Schenn. He's a guy that can take over as a good leader within that locker room. So if that's the biggest thing holding them back from getting a legitimate asset in return for a 34, soon-to-be 35-year-old Brayden Schenn, I just don't think that's enough to prevent me from doing it this time around. Last year, I understood it. You're close enough to the playoffs where, all right, you can convince yourself you go on this crazy run and maybe you have a chance to do it with Schenn there. This year, he doesn't have the same no trade protection. He's getting older, and there's a lot of teams that need him, and your team's no good again. I would go ahead and make the move as long as there's legitimate offers available for you.
Yeah, I'm with you because I think the point that you bring up there about the leadership, and it's not a shot towards Schenn, but they haven't been good in the, 3 years that he's been the captain. So it's not like it is the leadership has gone sour. I think Schenn is a good leader, but it's a lot of the same issues that have been popping up in the 4 years where we question accountability for guys and we question, the lack of effort from 3 coaches calling out the team. And that's not directed towards Schenn because Schenn, I think, does what the captain should do in the modern NHL. The problem is everything else around him has gone so poorly to where, I don't really see the downside in moving him. Now, can it get worse? Sure. How much worse? I'm not sure it can get much worse. So I think you have to move on from him because the league's going to value him.
We're on year 4 of this. For 4 consecutive seasons, they've been either bad or needed a historic run to get to the playoffs. So, I mean, eventually you have to look at it and say, man, I have good leadership, and it's not working. So I need to build up the roster. That's the most important thing. I need to have the ability to have the talent necessary to win again. And right now, this team doesn't have that talent. And the best way to add some talent to the nucleus
is trading talent.
To trade it. You got to do some of what the Cardinals have done. You got to go younger, and you've got to reinvest into the core group of your team. Have guys that can grow with you, or that you then flip those first-round picks, those assets, to other teams that have really good players, because you don't have to just keep them. Last time around, the Blues did this. They ended up with 3 first-round picks. They got Theo Lindstein, Otto Stenberg, and I believe that was the Dalibor Dvorsky draft, if I'm not mistaken. 2 of those 3 have already worked out. The third, we'll see on it. I don't think anybody believes they were actually going to use all 3 first-round picks at the time. The same thing could be true this offseason, where they go into the offseason, they've got a few first-round picks, and they flip 2 of them. And they end up getting ready-made NHLers for those players because you then have the $6.5 million for Brayden Schenn and the $6.5 million for Justin Faulk drop off your cap sheet, and now you've got $13 million in cap space that's available for you. Maybe now in the offseason, I go trade 2 first-round picks plus Jordan Kyrou and get Jason Robertson in return. That's the kind of stuff that suddenly becomes available to you. You can shake some trees and something falls out that you didn't even know would become available because you have the assets that those teams are now looking for. So, moral of the story, just because you do this doesn't mean you're going into a 10-year rebuild. It might mean this is opening up the kind of roster move that wouldn't otherwise be possible for you because of the salaries that are in place this offseason for you otherwise. Alongside Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll dive into the juncture. But next, there's one move that could open up the entire college football calendar. We'll tell you what that is next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
Stupiracy, it's the podcast where stupidity and conspiracy collide. Episode 3, Weird Origins of Common Phrases. Common expressions like cat got your tongue and bite the bullet feel harmless in modern conversation until you peel back the layers of history and the origins of these familiar sayings. Stupiracy Season 2 is out now, including our latest episode where we spill the beans on some of these common phrases and the surprisingly dark, strange, and often misunderstood histories hiding behind them. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube. Presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with a nationwide guarantee. Visit carstar.com.
from you. Text us at 314-399-9646 on the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Billikens fly toward Buckeye State. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Saturday delivered one of the most intense scenes in recent A-10 history. St. Louis University erasing a 9-point halftime deficit to beat VCU. Now Ohio assuming center stage. SLU Dayton tipping off at 6 p.m. 2 hours later, Mizzou will host number 22 Tennessee. Also tonight, Cardinals spring training action. Andre Palate drawing that road start against Washington. Another NL East nugget. Atlanta extends 2024 Cy Young winner Chris Sale. This Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
A couple of things before we get to the college football news from yesterday. One, lineup is out.
Lineup game? Pew, 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 pew.
Night game tonight down in Florida. Kind of. It's a 5:05 first pitch for the Cardinals. Victor Scott leading off. Thomas Ajayci batting second, playing at shortstop once again. Jordan Walker batting third, Velazquez at DH, and then Pozo, Pajes, Prieto, Torres, and Mendoza with Palante on the mound. So Victor Scott batting leadoff, Ajayci back in the lineup, and Jordan Walker batting third. Those are your headliners for today's game for the Cardinals. On the NHL side of things, just saw this. There was some speculation. I've seen this previously, but I didn't know really what to make out of it. Apparently, there's at least some thought around the NHL that Sergei Bobrovsky could be available via trade. Kevin Weeks leading some credence to this, posting on Twitter, keep an eye on the Florida Panthers. They haven't extended two-time Stanley Cup champion, two-time Vezina winner, and future Hall of Fame goalie Bobrovsky as the NHL trade deadline approaches along with the playoffs. This is very interesting given the fact that he's a pending UFA. So not a real report there saying, hey, the Panthers are listening on Bobrovsky, but when you tweet something like this out, he knows what he's doing. He's going to get a lot of attention for it. And I'm not saying he's doing it for the clicks, but he's bringing attention to this for a reason. The Panthers right now are in last place in their division. They are currently, let's see here, about 9 points out of a playoff spot as of today. Bobrovsky has been generally terrible. He has an 87% save percentage. It's pretty similar to Benner during the regular season. He is a pending UFA, but much like Benner, we know this guy can rise to the occasion once you get to the playoffs. I am very curious to see what that market becomes, how it develops, and how teams would value him at the trade deadline. I would imagine he's the kind of guy that could get a first-round pick on the market. And if you're the Panthers and you think that you're out of it, you're using this as kind of like a retool kind of season. Hey, let's get back at it in 2026, 27. You could even re-sign him next year if you really wanted it to and make it work where you get an asset for him now, re-sign him in the offseason, and then make a run for it again in the upcoming year. That could have a potential impact on a guy like Jordan Bennington's market as well, who has term left on his deal, unlike Bobrovsky. I'm curious to see how those markets interact.
Yeah, the nice thing if you're looking for, because I saw someone on the text line bring up, we'll look at his AAV. It was your fanny pack that brought that up. Looking at this Bobrovsky, it is $10 million the way he's listed on the cap hit. You got to remember, he's going to be about, 60% of that by the time we get to the trade deadline. So he'll be like about a $4 million goalkeeper probably. Because
and the Panthers could then eat half of it. So
exactly. So he could be like a $2 million goalie by the time we get to the deadline, which just about any team across the NHL could add. I'm skeptical that he would get a first-round pick, but to your point on it impacting the bidder market, it certainly would, because this is a guy that has proven in the past, as you had mentioned, that can perform in big games. I mean, he's a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. So you've got that to his resume. Even though he's having a down year, teams will still look at that and maybe go, you know, maybe that's on Florida, right? Florida's been injured all season long. Maybe that's impacting his numbers a little bit. Same way they might look at it with the Blues. Put Bennington on a good roster, a.k.a. the Olympics. Look what he does. He looks pretty good. You put him on a team like the Blues or the second worst team in the NHL, his numbers are way down. So I could see where a team would look him and put him above their list on the trade candidates because it's just a rental compared to Bennington, which is 2 years. But I still am skeptical he would get a first-round pick, but it will be interesting to monitor.
Do you think this could be a 3-team trade? I saw on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. Mo says, Benner to Florida, what? I wonder if there's a scenario in which like that kind of a deal would make sense, where Benner goes to Florida, Bobrovsky goes to a legitimate contender right now, and the Blues get future assets.
It would be interesting, and it would make sense for really everybody involved. Yeah, Florida gets their goalie for next year to push for the playoffs that can push in big games. At a cheaper rate. And, I mean, hell, if they're healthy, they still technically could maybe go on a run. So you've got that for you. And then whoever the contender is, they get their goalie that they're looking for. And if you're the Blues, you do end up with assets. I mean, it would be a hard deal to pull off, and I would doubt that it happens. But it would be interesting to see how the kind of breadcrumbs lay out and what everybody ends up in return. It'd be kind of a fun trade to see.
It'd be a really fun trade. I don't know how it would all work out and who the team would be that's the third team in this deal, but yeah.
And I don't remember if they closed this loophole or not. In theory, you could even have the Blues eat some of Bobrovsky's number, right? Wasn't you could send him Panthers eat 50%, Blues eat 50%, and then
I can't remember how exactly that's working right now, but I think they changed that.
Yeah, if they didn't for this CBA, because some stuff in the CBA is being pushed a year, like the contracts and stuff. If they didn't close that loophole, that's another thing that you could consider as well.
I think those salaries are just overblown. As you mentioned, for Bobrovsky, he's at, let's call it $6 million the rest of the year. I think it's even like $4 million. And then you eat half the salary. It's like $2 million that a team has to be able to take on. Most teams across the NHL can do that. So I wouldn't worry too much about
the
money side of things.
The reason I brought it up, though, is maybe there's a team that needs 2 or 3 moves right at the deadline to make, and you can't do the classic LTR move. That one did get closed off, I know of. So that's why a team might consider doing it if they need to make a move or two.
It's only one retention per trade, so that wouldn't mean anything anyways. But yeah, I do think that it would be interesting to see that kind of a 3-team deal where Bobrovsky goes one way, Benner goes to Florida, and then the Blues get the young assets, prospects, picks, all of that stuff in return. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. And you can check us out on YouTube, as always, at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. T-Bone, I saw a story yesterday. One of the big things for college football is the calendar. Trying to push things up because this year just ended way too late, man. The playoff was great, but by the end, you're going up against, the AFC and NFC championship games, and it gets lost in the shuffle where you've got a full week of the NFL divisional round leading into like a Tuesday night national championship game, which is then it has about 24 hours of legs because we start talking about the championship weekend for the NFL. It's just too late. They need to push the season up a bit, which would require them to start in what is now labeled as week 0, get rid of the conference championship games, and then just start everything earlier. It would also require a move that has been highly unpopular among a decent segment of college football fans, traditionalists, of bumping up the Army-Navy game. This ultimately has to be their decision. And the Army coach yesterday came out and said, hey, we're open to the idea of playing a week earlier if that's what's best for college football overall. We think that'd be fine. Now, we don't know what Navy thinks about this, but the Army coach, at least,
good for Army,
is open to bumping this game up a week. And if he's coming out publicly saying this, I would imagine he's probably talked to the administration at Army about it. T-Bone, this is ideal. I don't know if the NCAA is going to be able to get their stuff in order to where they can take advantage of this, but I would say a year or two down the road, I think what we'll see is the Army-Navy game will be bumped up. We'll see everything else start at week 0, and we will see a compressed college football playoff to where everything ends on January 1st. and we finish the college football season right before the transfer portal season officially kicks off, which is what this always probably should have been, but it all happened so quickly and before we could actually evolve and put it all under wraps. I think we're heading toward a place that makes a lot more sense for the calendar for college football overall.
Yeah, I hope that ends up becoming the case because I think it makes everything so much cleaner. Of like you're mentioning there, where one, you can actually get some hype around the college football championship game, unlike really the last 2 years where it gets kind of buried because you've got the NFL playoffs that it's competing against. But most importantly, it just makes life so much easier for these coaches. So instead of Kurt Cignetti having to host recruits in the transfer portal the week he's trying to get ready for, I think it was even the semifinal, he can actually coach his team, get ready for it. He will still have internal meetings about what they're going to do in the portal. Don't get me wrong. Those will still occur. But it'll be a little bit less on his plate of actually trying to recruit kids to come in and negotiating their NIL. This just makes all the sense in the world. And, I'm sorry, traditionalists, but when college football decided it was going to chase the money and expand the playoff and blow up the Pac-12 and move to these super conferences, tradition went out the door for a lot of it. We don't see a lot of rivalries across the sport. Hell, this was the first year in how long that we saw the border war in college football. Tradition's gone out the door for that green, beautiful dollar. So I'm totally in on this. I hope they can get this to work out. I'm skeptical that they will. Not so much on the Army-Navy part. I think based on what Army said, hopefully Navy's on board with that. They seem more imposed to, let's just expand the playoff. How about we fix the schedule first, and then we can talk about expanding the playoff, because the schedule's your biggest issue,
Correct.
Not expanding for the more dollars that will come for the playoff expansion.
From a traditional aspect, the only thing you need to know as it relates to Army, Navy, the only numbers, frankly, the only date that matters, that would be the year of 1890. Because since 2009, frankly, everybody acts as if, okay, Army and Navy have been entrenched on this Saturday, the second one in December forevermore. No, it's only been the case since 2009, rather. When you look back at how this has played out, almost always, it has been that final weekend of November or the first Saturday, for that matter, in December. So I think the sticking point here, and it does seem inevitable, we're going to have a sea change in a couple of years, regardless of the number of CFP participants. It's about that exclusive window. Because if you really read the comments here of Coach Monken for Army, if you in all likelihood think about what's going to be coming out, the sentiments from the Navy side, it's about trying to secure that block. And I think that's where you fall into this fly in the ointment, because if you're talking about having this as a showcased opportunity, the platform of Thanksgiving weekend, well, the NFL isn't going to budge. Why should it? The rest of college football, even if you abolish the conference championship games, I don't see, BK, how you get this exclusive window solely, regardless of the weekend, irrespective of the weekend, for Army and Navy. And that is something that does have to be figured out,
I think
ultimately.
you could do it on Black Friday. I think they could find a way to do it. I mean, Mizzou versus Arkansas used to have an exclusive window on Black Friday.
That line.
They found a way to carve out a day for them. If they can do it for Mizzou versus Arkansas, I think we can find a way to do it for Army versus Navy. Like last year, these were the games that were played on Black Friday, okay? That week, we had a ton of college football that was played. But the big ones, Indiana versus Purdue, Texas A&M versus Texas, that was fun.
That's a good one.
Georgia Tech. You had the Egg Bowl with Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. And then, the Big 12 had a bunch of games. Utah versus Kansas, Arizona versus Arizona State. And then you had a few others that were kind of lower level. You could carve out a 3-hour period on Black Friday if you wanted to. If you were college football and this is the way that you could make everything work, you could do it to where on that Friday, maybe it's like the 11 a.m. kickoff. You go Army versus Navy.
And then you make 3 o'clock Texas A&M.
Exactly.
And,
and then you have another big one that night with Georgia versus Georgia Tech or so on.
I see it.
So I think they could find a way to make that work if they really wanted to. Somebody on the text line said the NFL has that Black Friday weekend now. They have pushed into Black Friday, but there's a specific window for them. They have one game that is played on Black Friday. So again, if you started it at 11 a.m., you could make it work to where it ends before that NFL game and it ends before whatever the big college football game is, traditional powers that take place during that time. So I think there's a way to make it work. You just got to want to make it work.
Yeah.
And you've just got to work with all of the scheduling for conferences to get this thing done. Basically get everybody to buy in to where, hey, this is the thing that can make the entire conference slate and the entire college football slate work for us. We end on January 1st. Then the transfer portal begins. Then you can begin your classes, and everything just fits into place a hell of a lot better than what it does right now, where you have the transfer portal taking place as the college football playoffs are taking place. That doesn't make sense for anybody. Nobody in their right mind, if we started over today, would say, this is the best way to handle our current format. Nobody would. But we do it right now because it's what we've done since the start of this playoff. We just haven't been able to fix it just yet. We're working our way toward a better way to go about this thing.
Under this premise, you're looking out for the student athletes, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We do have somebody on the text line that said 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. What are the odds BK will mention the Trump interview with Josh Pate during this segment? I'll put it at minus 250. I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on it real quick. I think if you were Josh Pate, you have to take that interview. It made all the sense in the world. There are a lot of conversations taking place right now with college football about how to fix this stuff, especially with NIL. And politics are intertwined with sports. There's no way around it, especially in college football right now, where they're literally asking Congress to act to be able to fix this stuff. And Trump has come out and said publicly, hey, I want to get involved. I want to get involved in these conversations. I've got some ideas. So if you're Josh Pate, of course you take this interview. You're one of the leading voices right now in college football, and this has all taken place over the last 5 years. So you've got to take the interview. And at first, apparently, it was supposed to be 40 minutes. It got cut down, and by the time that they actually did the interview, he was given 10 to 15 minutes. If you actually go and watch the interview, which I did yesterday, it's mostly terrible. It's just a bunch of nonsense. They didn't actually talk about anything that was worthwhile. So this is not a criticism of taking the interview or anything political in nature. I promise you it is not. It was a bad interview with bad questions. And I think Josh Pate is really good at his job. And he's done an excellent job of carving out a specific space for himself in the college football landscape. But if you're going to take this interview and you're going to put your name on the line, because there's going to be people that are upset with you. We know that. Like, there are certain interviews that we could do on the air that you have to decide, is this worth it or not? And if the juice is going to be worth the squeeze, dude, you take it 10 times out of 10. But you better make sure that you do a good job with the interview. He asked about, like, hey, what's it like to be president? It's like, dude, you said this is not a political interview, and you just made it overtly political. So, yeah, to answer the question, do I have thoughts on it? I did. I thought it was a smart interview to take. You're one of the lead voices on college football. This guy has inserted himself into the college football conversation. You get an exclusive interview with the president of the U.S. Hell yeah, we'd take the interview too. 100 times out of 100. I would have a lot of questions, sports specific, to ask for Trump if he wanted to come on our show. I'd love to have that interview. If you just wanted to sit down for 15 minutes, but I can promise you it would be exclusively sports related if we were doing that interview on our show. And it would be about stuff that is relevant to our audience here in St. Louis. I don't think he did his audience a service by not asking questions relevant to college football fans, when you know people are watching the Josh Pate show for college football. So those are my thoughts on it. I had a lot of them.
I can tell you had a lot of them.
You have anything you want to add?
I didn't listen to the interview, so I would be not able to speak upon the ability of Josh Pate.
Would you give any thoughts if you did listen to the interview?
Oh, no, I would keep my 1,000-foot pole from the president in politics.
I will respectfully pass, even though I'm dressed like a diplomat today. So
coming up next, we'll dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
It only makes common sense.
College basketball is on ESPN tomorrow night. Connecticut and St. John's tip-off at 6. Your home for the NCAA is 101 ESPN. you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Have you guys seen the big story taking place right now with Reese's, the peanut butter cups?
No.
It's a really big story. So the grandson of the inventor has accused Hershey of cutting corners and says it's completely inedible now. There's a new recipe that they're going with, and the peanut butter, according to this guy, is like crispy. It's almost chalk-like in substance. Have you guys had a Reese's peanut butter cup recently?
I haven't, but now I want one.
Too many of them. Can't tell the difference.
Really?
No.
You haven't noticed anything?
I have not.
I've kind of noticed this.
Wow.
I will say this is something that's been on my radar. It does seem like there's a bit of a change in the texture. I'm a texture guy. There's certain things I just can't do. And with Reese's, it used to be my favorite candy. Now we can't have them in the house because Luke is allergic to peanut butter. It's a whole thing. But also, I don't think they're as good as they used to be. I'm a big Reese's peanut butter guy, but I don't think it's as good as it once was.
This is truly the first time hearing of this
When you
issue.
get home, on your way home, go ahead and grab some. See if they taste the same way that they used to in your mind.
BK,
this is the last time I had a Reese's.
This is really sobering. I'm going to grab some, okay, for the long commute to come. But we just did it on Valentine's Day. The hearts, the pumpkin-esque, shapes, and nothing was different. This is sobering. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of companies in the last 10 years or so that are trying to get a little, they're trying to cut some corners. I would say there's a sandwich shop that's known nationally. I don't need to call anybody out, but the portions seemed to go way down, and the prices seemed to go way up. That's been on my radar over the last few years. There's a place where you can go fast casual. I would say this has started to go back in the other way now, but there for a little while, they got a little skimpy with what they were putting into your meal. And the prices were going up on that a little bit as well. And then when you would get it to go, especially when you would get it delivered, boy, you really didn't get a whole lot. So, yeah, I think that we're starting to see some backlash from consumers, and I hope things start to go in a better direction now.
I've definitely heard it for some places from the consumer. I'll be honest, though, and maybe this is just on me. I don't know that I've noticed it, and I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I'm just oblivious to most of things in life, but I can't think, like Reese's, I'm sure I'm going to get one later today, and I still bet I'm going to come in tomorrow going, BK, I don't taste the difference. I may go to the sandwich shop you're talking about and go, BK, I'm not sure about this. I think it's same. Again, I don't know what that says about me because I actually think you're probably right. And yet I haven't noticed a thing.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening out there. So, head on a swivel, kids. Be sure to make sure you're keeping an eye on the portion size and the quality of the stuff that you're eating. They're trying to cheat you out there, and I won't let it happen.
This could really alter that approach for Easter.
We'll dive into bet it or forget it. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on BK and Ferrario. But next, there's a real difference in the preseason expectations in Major League Baseball compared to a decade ago. I finally saw it in chart form. It also matches what our personal perspectives are on this. We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tune in every Friday from 11 to 2 as BK and Ferrario broadcast live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federico's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. And presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea. XOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
With T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. So when I just think, anecdotally speaking, about Major League Baseball a decade ago compared to Major League Baseball today, leading into a season, it seems like it was more open a decade ago, T-Bone. But I didn't have anything to back that up. So I am at the mercy of a guy like Travis Sawchek, who has real information that he brings to the table. And yesterday, he tweeted out a couple of graphics. One was the World Series odds, according to Fangraphs, to win the World Series prior to opening day in 2017. The other was the World Series odds, according to Fangraphs, so a one-to-one comparison, same algorithm, all of these models and whatnot, right now for 2026. Today, according to Fangraphs, the Dodgers have a 27% chance to win the World Series. They have a 1 in 4 chance before a single game is played. Without knowing any injury luck or anything like that, 1 in 4 chance of winning the World Series this year, with it, which is bonkers. Meanwhile, there's only one other team with more than a 10% chance of winning the World Series. It's, by the way, the Braves.
Yeah, the Braves have been getting a lot of love.
Am I
actually,
missing
that
something?
I don't get. I think everybody just looks at their roster and sees name recognition, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Is Chris Sale going to throw every day now that he's extended?
That's the thing. I think it's the name. Like, when you look at what they have, the ceiling of their roster, pretty freaking good. And then you look at the floor and go, ugh, that's awful. I think everybody looks at the ceiling.
Is the ceiling for their pitching good?
I mean, with Sale and Strider, if they are good,
the front end one, too.
It'll lift it up to be like top 15, top 10.
That ain't good enough.
Well, I mean, it's better than what most teams can say.
Yeah, but Strider hasn't been good in a while. Reynaldo Lopez, I don't know. Grant Holmes, Bryce Elder, that rotation is not nearly good enough for me to believe in them. And then you look at what they have coming from the minor league system, it's a whole lot of nothing.
I'm with you. I don't get it on the Braves, but I think when people see the top end of their roster, I mean, we see this across. People thought Arenado was still a star that was going to bounce back for the last 3 years, when he clearly couldn't if you watched him every day. I think that's what's happening with the Braves. It's just the name recognition. Okay. It carries the top part of their roster, both in the rotation and then in the lineup.
Anyways, moral of the story, Dodgers, 25+% chance, according to Fangraphs, to win the World Series this year. Braves, the only other team in Major League Baseball with more than a 10% chance to win the World Series. You go back to 2017, same odds, same projections. There were 6 teams with at least a 10% chance to win the World Series that year. 6 of them, including 3 that were the best favorites, Dodgers, Cubs, and the Guardians, that had roughly the same 15% chance to win the World Series that year. This is why when we talked about this, I guess it was last week, T-Bone, about the conversation that the Fast Lane had with Kyle Gibson on the parity across Major League Baseball, it is true. Parity used to be a really big thing in baseball. It has changed, and that's why I believe the conversation has to change as well. If you're looking at the last decade of, hey, Major League Baseball versus the NFL versus the NBA versus the NHL, baseball's going to come out looking pretty good. If you made that exact same comparison over the next decade, now this is a projection as opposed to what has actually taken place, it's hard to do, but I would be very surprised if that remains the case. Because baseball's structure has changed. The Dodgers have become something that is completely different than what we had seen previously, and the revenues are changing across the sport. So this is why, in my opinion, I think it's almost an apples to oranges comparison. The sport has changed from where it was as recently as 8 years ago to where we are today.
Yeah, and I agree. And even looking at these graphs from 2017 to 2026, I mean, it feels weird to say the Dodgers have more staying power up there now than they did back then, right? Because now they've got unbelievable amount of spending that they're getting from their ownership group. And you look at all these teams, by the way, that are at the top, it's all mostly big market teams. Like the Yankees are high up here, Mets are high up here, the Dodgers are high up here, Phillies are pretty high up here, Toronto's pretty high up here. What I don't see, which I think is the other part of the conversation that gets lost about the parity thing, is all these teams that are in these small markets, These are teams that have had their deals, TV deals get wiped, or AKA the Central Divisions. The teams at the bottom here: Rockies, Nationals, White Sox, Cardinals, Marlins, Angels, Guardians, Reds, Twins, Athletics. They're all probably going to be in that range right now for quite a while because they just don't have the revenues, as you're saying, to that point. Meanwhile, these top market teams, like the Dodgers were the top team going all the way back to 2017. The Red Sox were fourth in this conversation. The Blue Jays, again, basically in the same spot as they were 2017 to compared to now. The Mets were basically almost in the same spot as they are today. It's all these top market teams that continue to dominate, and it's only going to get worse as the revenue disparity grows.
Can we do a quick comparison of the Dodgers rotation in 2017 versus today?
Oh, this will be fun because the rotation then I thought was good. Now it's great.
Dodgers rotation in 2017.
Can I guess it?
Sure.
Kershaw?
Yeah, he was the number one starter. Compare him to Yamamoto. Like, you could take Kershaw back then, and that'd be totally fine, but it's close.
David Price, was he there yet?
No.
Bueller? No, that would have been before him, right? Okay, well, I only had Kershaw. That was like the only one I guessed.
How about Alex Wood as the number 2 starter?
Oh.
This year, your number 2 starter is Tyler Glasnow.
Yeah, I like Glasnow a lot better.
How about Rich Hill as your number 3 starter?
Oh.
At 37 years old. How about Shohei Ohtani this year?
Yeah, I like him better than Rich Hill.
How about Kenta Maeda as your number 4 starter? 4.5 ERA.
Maeda was good for a year.
This year you've got Blake Snell.
That guy's a lot better.
Hyun-Jin Ryu as your number 5 starter. This year you've got Roki Sasaki. And then your other guys were Brandon McCarthy and Yu Darvish, who they traded for at the deadline that year.
Oh, that makes sense.
This year you've got Emmett Sheehan and a bunch of other dudes.
I'm curious to see
that are
how their lineup kind of look compared to today.
Sure. So their best hitters that year, Corey Seager, young player, stud.
Like Betts, not as young, but Betts and Seager. Sure.
Justin Turner was at the beginning of his renaissance for them. Cody Bellinger, who had that like rookie of the year season that year. And then beyond that, it was Chris Taylor, who was really solid. Jock Peterson, who was not good at the time. Yasiel Puig, who was awesome that year. That was in the midst of his breakout. And then other guys in the lineup were Logan Forsythe, Yasmani Grandal. And then Chase Utley played 127 games for them that year at the age of 38.
Yeah.
Kike Hernandez, it was his first year in the big leagues.
Still around.
He hit 215.
It still does that.
Austin Barnes was a big player for them. They had Adrian Gonzalez at the age of 35 as a negative WAR player. Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah. Boy, I mean, I heard
then Shohei Tucker, Betts, Freeman, Will Smith, Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez.
I heard
like their top
2 guys that could maybe compare to guys in that lineup today, but they don't have an Ohtani from them. They don't even have a Tucker, Hernandez. To your point, a Will Smith. Like listen to the catchers that you read off there. Yeah, everything has really changed for the LA Dodgers.
It has, and that's what's changed for baseball. Is that the LA Dodgers are a dominant team, whereas, 10 years ago, they were a very good team. They were a team that you could see and you would look at and be like, they're flawed, there's a path through this, but man, it's not going to be easy. And now you look at it and you're like, where is the hole? Hold on, I have to get to your 8-hole hitter before I feel like I have a chance? Hold on, it's the 5th starter in your rotation is the guy that's going to win the MVP this year?
Yeah.
In Shohei Ohtani? That really? Like Roki Sasaki might be your 6th starter, and he would be a lot of teams' number 1 starters heading into the season. Like Roki Sasaki, had he signed with the Cardinals, would be their opening day starter this year.
Yeah. Locked in.
And for the Dodgers, he might not start once we get to the playoffs. Like the odds are actually very much in favor of him not being a part of the rotation in October. That's the difference between the Dodgers in 2017 and the Dodgers today. It's pretty significant. By the way, the LA Angels owner said the other day, winning, not even a top 5 factor for fans.
Huh.
They care about security, and they care about affordability.
I believe
winning,
that.
Not top 5.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Is there any way to defend the take?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, I've not seen a ballpark that doesn't have winning that has fans. True statement. 0.1, and I'd love to see it. Because it's not happening here at Busch, who I saw as like the best fans in baseball. maybe you could argue that in Colorado, but I think Colorado fans want to win over watching bad baseball and safety and affordability. No, there's no way to defend the take. Art Moreno is just trying to manufacture something to make you believe in his lack of spending for a big market team.
He's T-Bone. That's Bradford on BK. I'm in total agreement with you. I was just wondering, is there... Sometimes you try to find the other side of the argument because typically people don't. They're not just imbeciles. This guy, he might be though. I don't know another explanation for what's taking place here other than, man, that guy's just not super bright. Coming up next, Better to Forget It here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Vegas sets them up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
Boys, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. A wonderful listener brought in some Reese's peanut butter cups for us to try. Brought in 3 of them.
Thank you kindly.
Took them to the front desk, and Doug showed up. Said, hey, I've got these for the 101 guys. Doug came in. I was in the kitchen. He said, hey, did you guys ask for a Reese's peanut butter cup? I said, well, we were talking about it. He said, I think these are for you. I said, okay. He said, what if they're poisoned, though? I said, hey, man, if that's the way I go out, so be it.
Let's say what else?
Worst ways.
Yeah.
So T-Bone, you said you haven't had a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup in a while. We were talking about these. Apparently, the recipe has slightly changed, allegedly. It's all alleged.
Alleged by BK.
No, by the grandson.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Of the founder. According to them, it's a little more chalky than it once was. Ready to find out?
Sure.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
I agree. A little more chalky.
I think it tastes the same.
Bradford?
You want me to bite in now? Okay.
Yeah, man.
All right, sorry.
You got to let us know what you think.
Can we do this for anything for our listeners? I could really go for a good warm sandwich right now.
From where? You got anywhere in particular?
Well, I think they're closed now. What's that one that we go to during the Blues playoff runs?
Blue City Deli?
Blue City Deli. I think they're closed
That's a bit
now.
of a drive, T-Bone.
Yeah, well, I don't know where this listener came from.
That's
to bring
true.
Reese's Pieces.
Apparently
Reese's
down the
Peanut
street.
Butter
I mean, we just talked about this 10 minutes ago.
All right.
Initial review, as choice as ever, in my book, for what it's worth.
Maybe
there you go.
It could be one of those things, too. Once you see it, you can't really get away from it. Yeah, so
I know
that's my personal
All
thing.
right, I'm waiting for my warm sandwich, though. I'll take it from anywhere, honestly.
Let's get into this. Bet it or forget it. So the Raiders GM at the NFL Combine has said he expects Max Crosby to stay despite all of the trade rumors. So he believes that Max Crosby will be a Raider in 2026. Bet it or forget it. Max Crosby is with the Raiders in week 1, T-Bone.
See, I kind of lean forget it. And the reason I say that is it's a very tradable contract at this point, I believe. I think they're going to move on from him. I think he wants out. I don't think they want to deal with the drama of him requesting this trade. I understand that they've got the leverage here. You could get a haul for Max Crosby. And I think as a team that's been clearly stuck in limbo, and even by adding Mendoza to the mix this year with the number 1 overall pick, they're still far away in their build to be a contender. So I think it makes sense to trade him, get major assets in return that you can either use at this deadline or flip later on, and then you can build around Mendoza. So I would forget this. I think he's traded.
It is a very movable contract in the grand scheme of things. Absolutely forget it. Yeah, I understand. Of course, he's been in the building, rehabbing every single day. He's enhancing his value in a manner of speaking. I don't know how Chicago gets it done. Maybe pair him up with his boy Caleb Williams. I don't know. That would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it?
That'd be a really good move by them. I'm going to bet this. I think he's on the Raiders in week 1. I just don't really see the incentive to move him. He's under contract through 2029. If you're them, I've got you under contract through your entire prime. We've seen this now. It doesn't take 3 or 4 years to overhaul a roster. You can do this in 1 to 2 years. He could be on a really good Raiders team in 2027. Like Mendoza comes in this year, they get their culture established, and by next season, they start really playing in the top end of the free agent market. Las Vegas is that's a market that guys want to play in. We've seen this in the NHL. I think it's going to be the case in the NFL if the Raiders are ever able to get their acts together. I think they're going to be able to get some guys that want to go play there. Hell, I mean, we've seen this in the past that guys have wanted to go sign there. It just hasn't worked out for all of them. If they get the coach right this time around, they could be good starting next year. I don't think like Super Bowl, but good nonetheless. I think he sticks there. T-Bone?
Guys, bet it or forget it. The St. Louis Blues will add 2 first-round picks at this year's deadline.
Bet it. I think they'll get 1 for Justin Faulk, and I think they'll get 1 for Brayden Schenn.
Don't think they'll go for a prospect rather than a pick?
No.
Boy, I want to buy into this one. 2 first-round picks, however, I will concede 1, absolutely. But if you're angling for a first-rounder, potentially in return for a Brayden Schenn, maybe you wind up disappointed. Maybe he ultimately remains on the roster for that matter. I'm not seeing multiple first-round picks.
I would forget it, too. I think they'll do 1 for a first-round pick for whether it be Faulk or Schenn. And then I wonder if they search for a prospect in the other deal. Don't want 3 first-round picks like they had a couple years ago.
All right, guys, 2 big ones on the local hoop scene this evening. SLU at Dayton at 6 o'clock. And, of course, Missouri hosting number 22 Tennessee at 8 p.m. in Como. Bet it or forget it. The line in this game, it has moved to now Tennessee favored by just 2.5.
Wow.
Bet it or forget it. Mizzou moves to 15-2 this season on its home floor.
So Mizzou wins tonight.
Yes.
I'm going to bet it. I just haven't been overly impressed by Tennessee this year.
Same.
I think they're fine. They're fine. They're exactly what I would expect Tennessee to be, but they're not a team that overwhelms you. Missouri plays really, really well on its home court. I think they know what the stakes are in this game as well. This is the kind of game where, hey, you win this, you've got a mulligan down the stretch where you can lose one of Mississippi State or Oklahoma and still get into the NCAA tournament. This is the kind of win that really opens things up for them. So I'll say bet it. I think they get this one done.
I'm going to forget it. I'm with you. I'm not that high on this Tennessee team, seeing them play Illinois earlier this year. I think defensively, though, they're very good, and I think they will shut down Missouri, make things hard on them, and if they stop Barrett, as we've seen, when Barrett goes, Mizzou goes. Mm-hmm. When Barrett doesn't go, it looks ugly for Mizzou. I think they're going to slow him down tonight. I think it's going to make it tough on Missouri. I think Tennessee wins.
Tennessee has won 8 of its past 9. Tennessee, however, doesn't turn you over a ton. I expect fully a bounce-back effort from one T.O. Barrett. Volunteers have been playing well, but this is a different team, as I've stated many times on the home floor. Missouri understands the stakes. Lock it in, get the job done, and underneath as well, I think that you can do a pretty representative job of maintaining your presence collectively in the paint.
Something to monitor in this game is the extra possessions. So Tennessee, very good at offensive rebounding. They're the best team in the country when it comes to offensive rebounding. They get about 50% of their misses. It's ridiculous. Missouri is okay this year at rebounding. It's not as bad as it has been at times in the past. But if they're able to get those extra opportunities offensively, Tennessee I'm speaking of, and they clamp down defensively the way they normally do, that's going to be a problem for Mizzou. They also turn the ball over, does Tennessee, a lot. So if Missouri's able to keep them off of the glass and they force some of those turnovers, that's how Mizzou actually ends up getting those extra possessions against Tennessee. And yes, Tennessee could clamp them down, but because they're getting the extra possessions, that makes up for some of the misses that Mizzou has. So that's where this game very well could be decided. Getting the turnovers and avoiding those extra possessions on the offensive glass. That's what I'd take.
You can't let Jacoby Gillespie get off either, because he has that ability to be A-Cuff-esque. But as we saw on Saturday, Mizzou, largely speaking, did a pretty good job on that number one option for Arkansas, too.
All right, let's get to some of these from the text line. 314-399-9646 is the Your Comfort Service text line from Merp the Barbarian. Guys, I asked you this around this time last year, and you all said forget it. I'll ask it again now. Bet it or forget it. The Dodgers will three-peat. I'm betting it.
I want to say forget it. I think this time, I think it's too hard to repeat as a champion. Last year, I thought they were in a better position because most of the arms they had in their staff weren't with the organization on the first run. This time around, most of them were. So I expect they're going to break down. They're not going to have their guys. And I think, as you saw last year, a team like Toronto, I think somebody like that will emerge from the AL that can pitch and keep it close, and this time around they'll be able to take them down. So I would forget this. I don't think we're going to see a three-peat.
I'm betting on this one, 25%. That was the number you referenced last segment, right, BK? I don't think that number is nearly high enough. I would assert that the bullpen has been solidified a little bit more for that matter, too. I think you get a better season down the stretch out of a Mookie Betts, even more out of Ohtani. I'm not betting against that team. I'm not taking the field.
Same. I just can't get myself to do it. All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Your Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it. The Blues will trade at least one NHL player prior to the game on Thursday. I'll forget this. I don't think they make a move that quickly. Not within the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I would forget it too. Even though I asked JR about it earlier today, like the one guy that I think you could move reasonably if he was healthy was Sonny. I don't know if there's much of a market for like a Matthew Joseph or a Robbie Fabry. So I don't think you're moving those guys to make these roster spots open up. I think you just send those guys through waivers. So I would forget this as well.
I'm forgetting it too. A little too soon. Bet it or forget it. The Blues do execute a deal before they head out west next week.
They got a west.
That one I think is more likely. Dude, they've got a lot of road games coming up.
Anaheim, San Jose.
Road games coming up. Bet it or forget it from the 636. J.J. Weatherholt leads the Cardinals in batting average this year. I'll forget this. I think it ends up being Alec Burleson or Ivan Herrera, one of those two.
Yeah, because what was Herrera at last year? He was at like 280, wasn't he?
I think 275, something like that.
I don't think he's going to do that. Again,
285.
I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to be like... No, sorry. I don't think Weatherholt's going to do that.
I was about to say.
Because I think Herrera's probably going to be around that range. I think Weatherholt's going to be like 250. So I would forget this.
I would even say Weatherholt could get to a hard 270, and that would be perfectly fine. But I'm riding with the guy who, to me, is the biggest known commodity as far as consistency in the lineup, batting average-wise, Alec Burleson, 285 to 290.
Is there a soft 270?
Can be.
Said a hard 270.
That's right.
I wasn't sure there's like a medium soft. I didn't know how this works.
Ceiling's 275, baby.
From the 573, bet it or forget it, Jordan Walker will lead the Cardinals in home runs this year.
I'll forget it.
No.
I think the leader in home runs this year is going to be...
I'll go Gorman.
I don't think he'll do it either. I would bet Burley. That'd be my bet today.
That's a good one.
I'll go with Burleson, too. Yeah. Would that actually be good or bad for the St. Louis Cardinals if Walker were to lead your team in home runs?
It's probably a good thing.
Fantastic, yeah.
It would say good things about Walker because I think you have to get at least 20.
Yeah.
I mean, guys are just going to play every day. So I would have to imagine every team in baseball had at least one 20 home run hitter last year.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if nobody did it.
The odds are firmly stacked against having a home run leader that's less than 20 on the season. So it would signify really good things for Jordan Walker if he's able to get 20-plus homers.
And that probably means he got close to what he was in 2023, his rookie campaign. He had 16 home runs in 117 games.
Yeah.
Had he not gone through that send-down period where they wanted him to lift the ball in the air more, then he would have been a 20-home run guy that season.
Exactly. That's my perspective on it as well. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we'll dive into the rewind. But next, do want to dive in a little bit more to a couple of big college hoops games locally tonight. SLU has one that they are going up against Dayton in. It's a very small line there on the road at Dayton, and Mizzou has one at home against Tennessee. We'll give you our thoughts on those, what they mean for both teams as they try to establish their spots as NCAA tournament teams next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
101 ESPN has your shot to score a pair of passes to the 2026 State Farm Missouri Valley Conference Men's Basketball Tournament. Hitting the court at Enterprise Center March 5th through the 8th. March begins here with the Arch Madness of the annual MVC Tournament featuring an 11-team field. All session and single session tickets are on sale now.
Get all the details and enter to win free tickets for Arch Madness now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app.
Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Underdog. The NFL season may be over, but that doesn't mean the action is stopped over on the Underdog app. Right now, you can make entries and win money in the state of Missouri. You can do this on college hoops, the NBA. They even have NFL draft. They have the NFL combine, higher or lowers for 40 times this week. So if you want to get in on some of the action over there, you can do that on the Underdog app today. For me, I'm focusing on tonight's game between Mizzou and Tennessee. We'll talk about this a little bit more coming up. I've got T.O. Barrett. The higher or lower, only 7.5 points for him heading into tonight. I'll take the higher. I like Mark Mitchell. I know he's been great as a distributor lately. I think tonight's going to be more of a T.O. Barrett game. I'll go lower than 3.5 assists for Mitchell. And Nate, I'm going to go higher than 6.5 rebounds. Those three plays, put them together, they're about 6-1 odds over on the Underdog app. If you like my play, you hate it, you can play too over on the Underdog app. Download it today. Use our promo code BKO to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog, Make plays, win money. Must be 18 or older, present in Missouri. Terms to apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_score.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-MY-RESET or visit www.ncpgambling.org.
Now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Palante primed for Grapefruit League duties. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Today at 5:05 p.m., Cardinals righty Andre Palante gets his first spring training start against Washington. Number 53 coming off a season in which he went 6-15 with 111 strikeouts over 162 innings. Meanwhile, longtime fireballer Chris Sale will remain with Atlanta beyond 2026. Men's college hoops, Mizzou hosting Tennessee 6+ hours from now. The 23rd ranked Billikens battled Dayton last night. Kansas overwhelmed Houston 69-56. This Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Bradford and T-Bone, I'm BK. Some big college hoops locally tonight. We'll get to the Mizzou game. We talked about it a bit in the last segment. SLU has a big one on the road at Dayton, T-Bone. This is a team that they took care of business against in a huge game, kind of their coming out party earlier in the season. How are you feeling going into this one? On the road, last time we saw SLU away from home, it didn't go particularly well against Rhode Island. They did get off to that slow start against VCU. Dayton is not a dominant team, but road games are tough. How are you feeling going into this one for SLU?
I feel good. I think they end up winning this basketball game, and I don't have any question about it. My question that I do have, though, is do they get off to that fast start that allows them to just kind of rest a little easier when they get into the second half rather than having to come back and try and win the basketball game? Or, I think you saw this perfect example against Rhode Island. If you allow a good, not great basketball team to hang around, they get the momentum at home, and then they can potentially put you away. And Rhode Island had that happen in that game against them. I just went back and looked because I remember that game against Dayton where they're a fringe top 50 defense according to Ken Palm's metrics. And SLU beat them 102-71. And I looked, and through the first half of that first half, so 10 minutes in, they led that game 32-14. That's what we were accustomed to seeing in the early going. But over the last 5-6 games, that's not been the case. They need almost that run in the second half to salvage a game. Look at the VCU game as a perfect example of it. To me, they've got to get off to fast starts. It's the thing that can potentially derail their hopes of going on a Sweet 16 type run in the NCAA tournament. And now's the time where you need to really start to right that ship because you don't want to go limping into the NCAA tournament without finding a solution for this because you might be able to get away with this in the A-10. But as I said yesterday, when you go up against teams that are from the SEC, or if you are a 7 seed and you run into like an Iowa State or an Illinois, you cannot get off to slow starts against those programs. They will put you away early on rather than letting you stay in the game like some of these schools in the A-10 are.
It's all about getting off to that fast start, albeit on the road, and that is clearly going to be the issue here this evening. I'm not taking this one lightly whatsoever, particularly because it is at Dayton, and while this team has long held a really solid reputation within the conference, this has not been a banner season for the Flyers by any means. 9-5, so solid, not great, although over the last 3 games, Anthony Grant knows what he's doing. This team has won 3 in a row. It is a different team in that venue. And for me, BK, a lot of it boils down to I have the known commodities, right, with a Robbie Avila being able to facilitate everything and give you the offense in clutch moments when you need it. Frankly, he was a huge point, obviously a tipping point, insofar as what SLU was able to do in the first meeting down at Chaifetz Arena. But tonight, I want to see if you can get another consummate offensive performance in waves that burst from somebody like a Kellen Thames. What you saw on Friday night was huge, and it's something that has been wildly inconsistent, we'll just say it, throughout the course of the conference schedule. If he can transform into a guy, irrespective of the setting, down in Midtown, on the road, somebody on whom you can really rely for the secondary offensive contributions, to me, that changes the complexion of what your team could do offensively. Yeah, do you have to consistently get the stops as well? Absolutely. That goes without saying. But I want to see if he can replicate at least a portion of what he did to lead that comeback last Friday night against VCU.
Trey Green is another one that I'd like to see him get going a little bit offensively.
Yeah.
He's been more quiet lately than what he was in the early going, especially in conference play. I mean, you look back early in conference play, here are his point totals overall. 23, 23, 15, 14, 9, 8. And then lately it's 13, 5, 14, 3, 9. He's been in single figures more often than not. It's not a huge deal. It's not the end of the world. They're deep enough offensively that they can make do. Where I said Mizzou, like, hey, T.O. Bear goes for 6, you're bleeped. It's game over. SLU has enough, and this isn't a good enough team to take advantage of it, to where if Trey Green's a little off or he's not really shooting, he's not being aggressive with his shot, they can make up for it. They're fine. He is, though, going to be important as they get into the NCAA tournament. And now you're talking about, we're 2 weeks away, guys. 2 weeks away from starting up the A-10 tournament, and then we're officially into NCAA tournament season. It's tune-up time. Let's see what it looks like for these guys. You basically have 2 real tests the rest of the way. Tonight against Dayton, and then on the road to finish out the regular season against George Mason, who's a pretty good team this year as well. Decent. Those are the last 2 games that'll really test SLU. So I'm curious to see some of those guys. I don't really have any questions about, like, Robbie Avila at this point in his career. I know what you're getting out of him. It's more the secondary and tertiary pieces for that offense that I'm going to be honing in on heading into tonight.
And a guy like Green is someone that can really go off in the tournament. Like when we talk about these mid-majors that pull off upsets in the tournament, it's someone typically gets on fire from distance. I mean, you mentioned some of his numbers. Last game against Dayton, 7 of 10 from three-point range, 6 of 10 versus George Washington, 5 of 10 at St. Bonaventures. That's the kind of performance that game alone could lift you through an NCAA tournament game. So, yeah, trying to find a way to get him back into rhythm from an offensive perspective would be big for them as they get into the March Madness.
Well, we also got this. It's a really good point from the YouTube chat. I saw this from John Scores. 6 seed is where SLU wants to be. The 2 seeds are tough this year. 3 seeds can be had. As I just look over at the bracket matrix right now, where they break down all of the different bracketologists and where they've got you ranked, SLU is one of the top 7 seeds currently in terms of the consensus. If they win out, they're going to have a decent shot to get up on that 6 line. That's where they want to be, because the 2 seeds as of today are Houston, Iowa State, Purdue, and Illinois. All of those teams are going to be really tough outs in the second round. 3 seeds, there's at least a couple of them with Nebraska and Gonzaga that I think SLU could have a pretty good chance against. Now, Florida and Kansas may be a little bit of a different battle, but if you can end up in that same bracket as Nebraska or Gonzaga with the way that things are set up today, I think you're feeling pretty good about that second round matchup. A hell of a lot better than any of those 2 seeds that I just mentioned. So winning out, hugely important for them. If they do so, they could potentially bump up to that 6 seed. On the Mizzou side of things, they're just trying to get into the tournament and trying to avoid the first 4. A lot of people currently have them as a part of that first 4. One of the 11 seeds playing in Dayton. Beating Tennessee tonight at home, that's the way that you do it. This is the kind of win on your resume that's a quad 1 victory, and it goes into that resume builder category. If you beat Tennessee and you win at least one of Mississippi State or Oklahoma, not only do I think they get into the tournament, I think they avoid the first 4. That, to me, should be the goal for them. It's not a must win, but it goes a long way in helping you get into the tournament if you're able to get this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you're able to win tonight, I would pick them in the next 2 games. Now, when they go on the road, they seem to play down to the competition sometimes, so maybe I shouldn't give them too much credit for that. But if you win this one, and you're probably going to be favored in the final 2 games there on the road, yeah, you're looking at a way to avoid that first 4, right? You end up getting that bye rather than having to go to Dayton. We'll see if they can do that tonight. I'm skeptical of that. I don't think they will match up well against this Tennessee squad, as we talked about a little bit earlier. My expectation is that they lose. But I agree with you. I think a win tonight, you add another quad 1 win to your resume, which I think would be, 5 or 6 if I'm not mistaken.
Got a really, by the net, it's not very good. But when you just look at the actual resume, Mizzou has a very good resume this year. It's weird.
Because they've got a bunch of good quad 1 wins. They've got decent record in the quad 2. And then they don't have a loss in quad 3 or 4. And that's what you want. But that's the way you're going to avoid being in that first 4. So a win tonight would be big for them.
I mentioned in the previous segment, you have to account for Gillespie. You cannot allow him to go off. He's somebody who can single-handedly carry a team offensively for stretches. And even though Tennessee, numbers-wise, it's been on a nice run, 3 in a row, that game at Vanderbilt, really, I would contend, took a lot out of it over the weekend. Second half here of the games away from Knoxville. And to me, as much as you want to see BK, you hope for, if you're a Mizzou enthusiast, the response there in the backcourt, specifically from T.O. Barrett. I think of equal importance, too. Jaden Stone had been pretty much a revelation throughout the first leg plus of conference play. He was very quiet by his SEC standards against the Razorbacks. I think that gets remedied tonight. You see a touch and go, very tightly contested game into the second half. But Missouri does have, I think, the numbers, the physicality to match up with Tennessee. Both of these teams very comparable as far as numbers go on the glass this season.
Little Jackie's rolling papers on the text line said, what if Mizzou loses to Tennessee tonight? They lose to Arkansas to finish out the season, and they lose to Oklahoma. They get into the conference tournament, only win 1 game. Do you think they end up making the tournament? No. If they win 1 out of their last 4, I think they probably end up on the outside looking in.
I agree.
I think it'd be really tough for them to be able to get in that scenario. I think they have to win 2 of the final 4 to get in. If they win the 2 games that seem most likely, which is Mississippi State and Oklahoma, they're probably looking at the first 4. They'll be a part of Dayton, would be my guess, depending on what happens in the conference tournament. And there's obviously stuff that has to happen around them to give you a little bit more of an idea there. But if they win tonight and win one of those other games the rest of the way, I think they're firmly into the tournament. So I do like it. I do like the potential of them getting in if they're able to win this one tonight. It's not a must win, but if you want to secure one of those spots, don't want to go to Dayton, which I think Mizzou would prefer not to.
I don't think there's much in Dayton.
There's a lot on the line.
I'm not sure I would count. I'm not sure I'd give Gates credit for making the tournament if he went to the first 4 only.
Tanner.
It's like getting to the wild card game.
I kind of agree.
We had someone on, I don't remember his name, that worked for Fangraphs at the time and used to work in, I think it was the Astros front office, and said they wouldn't even give us like a credential as a playoff game. It was viewed as like an extra regular season game.
So what is
true here?
What needs to happen next year with all these much ballyhooed recruits to earn a little bit of respect?
Coming up next, the Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
The Blues play on 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Thursday night, Blues and Kraken. Pre-game at 6. Puck drop at 7.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN. picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It's free to download, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. If you missed any of the show today, you missed us talking about the Cardinals potentially developing a starter out of the bullpen this year. We also discussed Justin Faulk and Brayden Schenn, what their value is, both to the Blues and also on the open market. And we gave our thoughts leading into tonight's college basketball games, big ones locally for both SLU and Mizzou. All of that available for you on the podcast page today. T-Bone, later this evening, the Cardinals are back in action. They will have Andre Palante on the mound for them. What is your level of interest in Andre Palante this spring? Is he somebody that you think is truly competing for a spot in the rotation this year?
I think he's truly competing for a spot in the rotation this year. I mean, as we saw, what was it, 2 years ago when he was able to go down to the minor leagues, work on becoming a starter, and then getting back up to the major leagues. He was a good starter. I mean, he finished the year with a 3.78 ERA, and I would bet his ERA was a little lower in those 20 starts. He's not going to strike out the world, we know that, but when he's at his best, he can keep the ball on the ground and get guys out. And when he's at his best, he can really get lefties out as well, and that's where things really went awry for him last year. Mm-hmm. He still had the issues of getting righties out, but that was a thing that was a problem even when he started in 2024. Last year, it was lefties that flipped on him as well. If he can get back to that with a couple of adjustments, I think he was one of those guys that talked about working on a kick change at winter warm-up. That would be something to help him try and neutralize lefties. I think he can work his way and hold a spot in this rotation for this year. Now, what does that mean for him in the long run? I don't know. But he can definitely be a guy that can win a job out of spring training and do it the old-fashioned way of the Cardinals built, which was sinkers and keeping the ball on the ground.
I do think if they really feel as though they need multiple lefties out of the bullpen, I know he's not technically a lefty, he is probably your path of least resistance to become that extra left-handed option where you're looking for somebody that can get lefties out. He's got those reverse splits. His stuff plays well to left-handed hitters, generally speaking. It wasn't always that way last year. But coming out of the bullpen, he's somebody that could help you there. I think it's a really big spring training for him. There are very few players that are entering the spring and they need to perform in order to make the roster. That's been the case more often than not lately for the Cardinals. This year, I don't think so on the position player side of things. For Palante, he better perform well, or you're going to have somebody else that ends up taking that spot. It could be Dobbins and Fitz that get that spot in the rotation over him, and then Palante ends up having to kick back over to the bullpen. So I'll be very curious to see what he looks like today. It's not a one game makes the decision kind of a situation, but a good start would certainly be nice for him. Tebow, you going to miss being in that chair tomorrow?
I am. I can see the televisions that were over here during the Olympic break. I could watch curling on the screen to my left, hockey on the screen to my right. And when I'm in the seat Bradford's in, I can't see anything but you and Alex's face.
It's back to BK and Ferrario in the traditional sense starting tomorrow. Alex back off of vacation. First time the three of us, me, Alex, and T-Bone, have done a show in our regular spots in 2 weeks. So it'll be fun to have Alex Ferrario back in the saddle with us tomorrow. Bradford has done a fantastic job filling in the last couple of weeks. Appreciate you for doing so, my friend.
Appreciate it, guys. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. It was great to have Bradford in. So we will be back to the normal gang tomorrow. We will also have Chris Kerber on the show prior to the Blues returning to the ice on Thursday. So plenty to get into. We'll discuss the SLU game. We'll discuss the Mizzou game. All of that, so much more tomorrow from 11 to 2 here on BK and Ferrario. For Tanner, for Bradford, I'm BK. The Fast Lane is next here on 101 ESPN.
When you buy Reese's candy, good.
101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Sarah Cramper from St. Peters, Missouri. She is our 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty. See us at carstar.com.